Picture a universe where the iron in your blood and the calcium in your bones were born in catastrophic violence, carefully forged in the superheated core of a dying titan. Long before our pale blue world ever drew its first breath, these primordial suns burned with a terrifying, radiant intensity to manufacture the very atoms required for your existence. This majestic cosmic structure is not just a distant, abstract memory, but a heavy physical legacy that you carry within you every single day. Imagine walking upon a familiar world that is not merely a static relic of the past, but a living, breathing entity quietly feeding on the wandering remnants of the galaxy. Surprisingly, the solid foundation of our home continues to silently harvest an invisible, ethereal rain of cosmic debris, gathering countless tons of extraterrestrial sand from the blackness above. As we go about our busy, mundane lives completely unaware, the Earth acts as a massive and patient collector, slowly sweeping up the shattered fragments of ancient collisions. If we were to look closer at the quiet and peaceful dark, we would witness a beautiful eternal tension between the forces of absolute order and the wild, unpredictable pull of chaos. This microscopic, wandering dust acts as the physical medium for the universe's most profound internal struggle, the primal urge to scatter into the freezing void versus the gravitational instinct to gather and build new worlds. It is a delicate, continuous dance of creation and destruction, a sweeping, epic unfolding silently in the vast spaces between the stars. Yet, amidst this grand and sweeping celestial storm, you are safe, resting perfectly still in the quiet, undisturbed comfort of your own room. The heavy, chaotic labour of the cosmos has already been completed over billions of years, leaving you to simply breathe in the dark and let go of the day. These wonders are yours to inherit as you sleep, a magnificent and dusty history written specifically to bring you to this exact grounding moment of profound peace. Let your body sink deeper into the soft support of your mattress, releasing any remaining tension as your mind prepares to travel back to the very beginning of it all. The journey starts far away from the safety of this room, reaching across the eons to a chaotic time before the planets and the moons even existed. Deep within the crushing, luminous heart of an ancient star, the very building blocks of our universe were forged in an inferno of unimaginable scale. Deep within the crushing, luminous heart of an ancient star, the very building blocks of our universe were forged in an inferno of unimaginable scale. Billions of years before the Earth even existed, these primordial suns burned with a terrifying, radiant intensity. Within their superheated cores, immense gravitational pressures force simple hydrogen atoms to collide and fuse, sparking the brilliant light that pierced the cosmic dark. This violent nuclear crucible did not merely produce energy, but acted as a colossal, celestial forge manufacturing heavier elements. Oxygen, carbon, and iron were slowly synthesized in the agonizing heat, baking the raw ingredients of future worlds in a stellar oven. For eons, the star held these precious new atoms captive within its fiery, churning plasma. Eventually, the delicate balance between gravity and nuclear fusion faltered, sealing the fate of the colossal sphere. The dying gastos of the star would soon release this hidden treasure into the boundless void. Every single atom of stardust that wanders the cosmos today first drew breath in the suffocating depths of these long-vanished stellar giants. Slowly and with immense grace, dying stars exhale their outer layers, casting vast, glowing shrouds of gas and dust into the freezing emptiness of space. This cosmic breath is not a sudden explosion, but a prolonged, majestic sigh that spans tens of thousands of years. As the star's core contracts and heats up, its outer envelope swells and cools, eventually drifting away from the gravitational grip of the dying sun. The expelled material billows outward, riding the gentle push of stellar winds into the silent, frigid void. What was once the scorching plasma of a living star transforms as it travels further into the absolute chill of the interstellar medium. The The sheer scale of this quiet expulsion defies human comprehension, filling the emptiness with a rich, elemental mist. Within this cooling vapour, atoms finally meet and bond in the dark, forming the very first microscopic grains of solid matter. These shimmering clouds of stellar ash carry the legacy of their parent star, wandering aimlessly through the deep freeze. It is a slow, beautiful surrender, scattering the seeds of creation across the unforgiving canvas of the night. Stretching across the unfathomable expanse of the galaxy, these majestic stellar nurseries form luminous clouds that span trillions of miles through the dark. To cross even a fraction of one of these nebulae at the speed of light would take hundreds, sometimes thousands of years. They are oceans of raw potential, hanging suspended like iridescent ghosts against the black backdrop of the cosmos. From a distance they appear as static, painted smears of light, but in reality they are chaotic, swirling arenas of celestial mechanics. Currents of gas flow and crash like tides, sculpted by the energetic radiation of nearby celestial bodies. The sheer volume of space they occupy is staggering, containing enough raw material to build millions of interconnected solar systems. Inside these boundless realms, the density of matter is incredibly low, yet the sheer massive size allows gravity to work its slow, inevitable magic. These sprawling dust clouds act as the galaxy's incubators, quietly gathering the scattered ashes of the ancient past. They represent the ultimate triumph of scale, where microscopic grains collectively form structures that dominate the galactic skyline. Picture a delicate tapestry of glowing hydrogen and helium, woven across the dark and illuminated from within by the fierce blue light of newborn stars. These infant suns ignite deep within the protective folds of the cloud, casting harsh ultraviolet rays that cause the surrounding gases to fluoresce. The resulting display is a breathtaking array of vibrant reds, deep blues, and ethereal greens painting the velvet void. The radiation from these youthful stars acts as a cosmic wind, blowing away the lighter gases and carving out immense glowing caverns in the nebula. This fierce light illuminates the denser ribbons of stardust, highlighting the intricate wispy filaments that thread through the dusty nursery. It is a portrait of violent, beautiful birth, where the light of the new violently interacts with the physical remnants of the old. This glowing hydrogen acts as a brilliant canvas, revealing the shadowy silhouettes of thicker dust lanes that resist the luminous onslaught. The interplay of brilliant luminescence and absolute darkness creates a hypnotic shifting landscape of elemental mist. Here, the cycle of the cosmos is visible, a radiant cradle lit by the very fires it birthed in the dark. Notice how gravity gently sculpts these microscopic grains into towering pillar-like structures that dwarf our entire solar system. As the fierce radiation from newborn stars boils away the surrounding gas, denser pockets of stardust act as physical shields, protecting the material hidden behind them. This process of cosmic erosion leaves behind massive, dark columns of dust, pointing toward the light like silent, reaching fingers. These colossal pillars are not solid stone, but rather incredibly diffuse collections of ash held together by their own faint gravitational pull. Despite their fragile composition, they stand as monumental monuments in the cosmic landscape, resisting the chaotic winds that strip away the less dense material. Deep within the darkened heads of these pillars, gravity continues its slow, patient work over the millennia. The microscopic grains are drawn closer and closer together, increasing the density of the cloud until the internal pressure begins to rise. These towering silhouettes are the ultimate focal points of stellar creation, serving as the heavy, brooding incubators for the next generation of stars. They are shadows of dust, holding the crushing weight of future worlds within their murky depths. Far away from the blazing light of any star, the deepest recesses of these clouds plunge into a terrifying, unnatural cold. Here, the temperature hovers just a fraction of a degree above absolute zero, creating one of the most frigid environments in the known universe. This profound chill brings the frantic motion of atoms to a virtual standstill, creating a realm of absolute breathless silence. The lack of thermal energy acts as a perfect cosmic freezer, preserving the pristine stardust exactly as it was forged eons ago. In this deep freeze, delicate chemical bonds that would be utterly destroyed by heat or radiation are perfectly maintained. Ice mantles begin to form around the tiny grains, coating the elemental ash in a protective layer of frozen water, carbon monoxide, and ammonia. This freezing isolation ensures that the dust remains untainted, drifting through the dark like perfectly preserved relics of a forgotten era. The crippling cold is not an empty void, but a crucial sanctuary that protects the fragile chemistry required for future planetary life. It is within this ultimate stillness that the most complex secrets of the universe are kept entirely safe. If we were to look closer, past the glowing gas and the icy chill, we would find that silicates and carbon molecules form the microscopic backbone of this cosmic powder. These tiny grains are fundamentally similar to the sand on a beach or the soot from a candle, yet they drift through the vacuum of space. The silicate grains are rocky and jagged, born from the oxygen-rich outer layers of dying red giant stars. Conversely, the carbon-rich dust resembles incredibly fine graphite or even microscopic diamonds, forged in the fiery hearts of ancient carbon stars. These distinct families of dust provide the solid foundation upon which all the complex chemistry of the interstellar medium relies. They are the scaffolding of the universe, offering a physical surface where wandering atoms can finally meet and react. Together, these mineral and organic specks create a wildly diverse, floating wilderness of microscopic terrain. Though entirely invisible to the naked human eye, this ubiquitous cosmic soot profoundly alters the overall landscape of the galaxy. It is the solid anchor in a sea of gas, the rough, tangible substance that gives the cosmos its physical texture. Over millions of years, these tiny particles dance and collide in the silent vacuum, engaged in a painfully slow, chaotic ballet. Driven by the faint currents of interstellar magnetic fields and the gentle nudges of starlight, the dust grains drift aimlessly across the dark gulfs of space. Occasionally, their meandering paths cross, resulting in microscopic collisions that unfold in complete breathless silence. Sometimes, these gentle impacts cause the grains to shatter, breaking them down into even finer clouds of cosmic mist. More often, the sticky, icy coatings surrounding the dust allow the particles to fuse together, slowly building slightly larger, more complex aggregates. This continuous cycle of destruction and assembly ensures that the stardust is constantly evolving, intimately mixing the elemental legacies of countless dead stars. The sheer timescale of this microscopic interaction is staggering, with a single grain travelling for eons before encountering another. Yet, through these rare, serendipitous meetings, the dust grows steadily heavier and far more intricate over the ages. It is a patient, endless waltz of matter, where the rhythm is measured in millennia and the stage is the boundless expanse of the galaxy. Surprisingly, the universe relies on physical components so small they defy our natural human intuition. A single speck of stardust is significantly smaller than the width of a human hair. To truly grasp their size, one must imagine a particle closer to the scale of a single bacterium or a wispy tendril of cigarette smoke. They are dwarfed by even the finest grains of terrestrial sand, making them completely impossible to see individually without the aid of powerful electron microscopes. Because of their diminutive nature, they possess a massive amount of surface area relative to their microscopic volume, making them highly reactive. This high surface area allows them to act as incredibly efficient chemical catalysts, absorbing passing atoms and facilitating complex molecular bonds. Their minuscule size also means they're easily swept up and effortlessly carried by the faintest whispers of cosmic wind. Despite being almost infinitesimally small, the sheer, unimaginable quantity of these grains allows them to block the light of entire galaxies. They prove that in the grand architecture of the cosmos, the most powerful cosmic forces often rely on the smallest, most unassuming actors. It is a vast universe built securely upon the backs of invisible floating stones. By drifting ceaselessly through the galaxy, this ancient ash carries the fundamental building blocks of future worlds across the unimaginable distances of space. These microscopic wanderers are the ultimate cosmic couriers, transporting heavy elements from the silent graveyards of old stars to the vibrant cradles of new ones. Without this migratory dust, newly forming solar systems would be composed entirely of sterile hydrogen and helium gas. The iron required for planetary cores, the silicon needed for rocky mantles, and the carbon essential for biology are all reliably delivered by this floating soot. As a star-forming cloud finally collapses under its own crushing weight, it pulls these wandering grains inward, gathering the scattered harvest of a million supernovae. The dust that once drifted in the freezing void is reborn, forged by extreme gravity into asteroids, moons, and eventual planets. This constant, sprawling journey of the Stardust guarantees that the galaxy functions as a deeply connected, eternally recycling ecosystem. The death of one star directly provides the exact physical substance required to birth the next rocky world. It is the eternal, dusty pulse of creation, ensuring that the heavy elements of the past become the solid ground of the future. That solid ground of the future, and the very life that would eventually walk upon it, shares an intimate blood-red bond with the violent end of stellar giants. The iron that flows through human veins, carrying vital oxygen with every beat of a resting heart, was not formed in the quiet warmth of a gentle sun. Instead, this crucial metal was forged in the unimaginably chaotic death throes of a supermassive star collapsing under its own apocalyptic weight. The star is suddenly doomed by its own heavy creation, poised on the very brink of a catastrophic structural failure. As you rest here, breathing softly into the stillness, realize that the physical iron anchoring your blood is a direct echo of a celestial titan's final moments. Surprisingly, the universe absolutely relies on these catastrophic supernovae to scatter the necessary seeds of complexity across the dark. Without this ultimate violent sacrifice, the iron and other heavy elements would remain forever trapped within the cooling, impenetrable corpse of the dead star. The cosmos essentially uses the most destructive forces imaginable as an essential, mandatory delivery mechanism for the ingredients of solid worlds. When a smaller star simply fades away, it hoards its internal treasures, locking them away permanently in a dense, inaccessible white dwarf. It requires an explosion of incomprehensible magnitude to completely shatter that stellar vault and fling its precious contents outward into the waiting void. The sheer, terrifying violence of the event is not a chaotic accident, but a carefully tuned cosmic requirement for the ongoing evolution of the galaxy. Every single catastrophic detonation acts as a colossal celestial forge and an incredibly efficient distribution network all at once. The silent darkness of the galaxy is momentarily pushed back by a flash of brilliance that guarantees the universe will not remain a sterile ocean of simple gas. It is a spectacular act of creation perfectly disguised as ultimate destruction, ensuring the endless cyclical nature of stellar life continues to thrive. This cataclysm begins in utter silence the moment the star finally exhausts the very last of its nuclear fuel. Without the outward pressure of fusion to hold up its massive bulk, the delicate equilibrium that sustained the sun for millions of years completely shatters in an instant. Gravity, patient and relentlessly powerful, instantly reclaims absolute control, pulling millions of Earth masses of scorching plasma inward at a terrifying fraction of the speed of light. The massive outer layers plummet toward the dead iron core, accelerating violently through the star's own atmosphere in a catastrophic, unstoppable freefall. Within mere seconds, a luminous sphere larger than our entire solar system violently shrinks down to a dense ball only a few miles across. The unimaginable force of this sudden, violent compression packs the atomic nuclei so tightly that they literally cannot physically squeeze any closer together without breaking the laws of physics. Deep in the heart of this collapsing nightmare, the density becomes so extreme that protons and electrons are violently crushed together into a sea of pure neutrons. The core instantly transforms into an impossibly rigid, ultra-dense sphere, setting the grand stage for the most powerful physical rebound in the universe. As your body relaxes into the present moment, releasing any lingering physical tension, the sheer scale of this ancient crushing compression seems almost too massive to hold in the mind. Hitting this newly formed, impenetrable neutron core, the unimaginable weight of the infalling material violently bounces back, triggering a catastrophic rebound explosion. This colossal shockwave rips outward from the centre, tearing through the descending layers of the star with apocalyptic fury and entirely unstoppable momentum. The resulting detonation is so intensely bright that for a few brief glorious weeks, it completely outshines the combined light of billions of ordinary stars in its host galaxy. If we were to look closer at this blinding flash, we would witness a single dying sun radiating more raw energy than it had produced in its entire multi-million-year lifespan. This is the supernova, a brilliant beacon of destruction clearly visible across the unfathomable, dusty distances of the observable universe. It stands as a solitary screaming lighthouse in the deep dark, signalling the dramatic, violent end of a cosmic titan to anyone watching the skies. The immense flash of hard radiation is so overwhelmingly powerful, it can temporarily alter the atmospheric chemistry of planets, residing many light years away. Yet, in the perfectly silent vacuum of deep space, this ultimate celestial crescendo occurs without a single, audible sound. It is a masterpiece of blinding light and terrifying kinetic energy, a flash that permanently alters the structural landscape of the interstellar medium around it. Amidst this chaotic shockwave, the sheer temperature and pressure skyrocket to levels unseen since the very dawn of time, forging complex elements much heavier than iron. In the tiny fraction of a second that the explosion rips through the star's outer layers, free neutrons are violently slammed into existing atomic nuclei. This frantic microscopic bombardment creates highly coveted precious metals like gold, platinum and silver in a fleeting, brilliant flash of violent nuclear alchemy. The glittering jewellery that adorns human hands and the rare conductive metals that power our modern technology were literally born in the fire of this stellar explosion. The universe does not slowly or patiently bake these heavy, complex elements. It forcefully hammers them into existence during an event of pure, unadulterated physical violence. It is a chaotic, instantaneous harvest of heavy atoms, synthesized in the exact moment the star literally tears itself completely apart. Every single ounce of gold currently residing on Earth was created in these highly specific cataclysmic conditions, making it a tangible, heavy relic of a ruined star. As you lie perfectly still, breathing deeply and letting your muscles soften further, consider that the trace amounts of precious metals around you are quiet echoes of that frantic atomic smashing. The quiet, seemingly stable solid world you inhabit is secretly woven with the glittering heavy shrapnel of a detonated sun. Riding the ferocious crest of the resulting shockwave, these newly minted heavy elements are propelled outward at furious speeds, exceeding tens of thousands of miles per second. The immense force of the explosion completely unbinds the structural integrity of the star, casting its twisted, molten remains outward into the freezing interstellar medium. This marks the ultimate cosmic scattering, aggressively throwing the heavy atomic treasures far away from their violent birthplace to permanently enrich the barren stretches of the galaxy. The rapidly expanding bubble of superheated gas acts as a massive sweeping plough, slamming into the surrounding interstellar dust and pushing it into colossal glowing ripples. This ferocious outward journey guarantees that the new, complex elements are thoroughly mixed into the wider cosmic ecosystem rather than clumping together in a useless, isolated mass. It is a violent, highly effective distribution system, aggressively seeding the nearby empty space with the critical building blocks of future planets and moons. Centuries after the initial blinding flash of the supernova finally fades from view, this terrifyingly fast wave of material continues to surge relentlessly through the void. It carries the gold, the silver, and the vital iron across light years of empty space, acting as an unstoppable tsunami of elemental potential. The spectacular death of the star ensures its physical legacy will stretch across the dark for countless millennia to come. Imagine a glittering, invisible wave of newly forged precious metals expanding silently through the black canvas of the cosmos, sweeping through the dark like a cosmic ghost. This spherical cloud of heavy radioactive isotopes forms a mesmerizing, chaotic web of glowing filaments, painted in the highly energetic hues of X-rays and ultraviolet light. Though composed entirely of violently expelled stellar shrapnel from a safe distance, the expanding remnant takes on the delicate, intricate appearance of brightly spun glass. This glowing ghost of the star holds the absolute chemical promise of 1 billion potential new worlds locked within its tangled, fiery threads. As it steadily expands outward, the leading edge of the shockwave gradually sweeps up the sparse ancient dust that already existed in the void, gathering it into incredibly dense rolling ridges. The chaotic, swirling intermingling of the old, cold material and the new, burning ash creates an incredibly rich, diverse tapestry of cosmic dust. Over many thousands of years, the fierce initial energy of the explosion naturally begins to wane, and the dazzling high-energy colours of the remnant slowly shift and dim. Yet, the physical wave of heavy elements never truly stops its forward momentum. It simply becomes a quiet, persistent, cooling drift through the interstellar wilderness. This glittering tide of ancient stardust carries the ultimate raw materials required to forge the solid ground of the future. Long after the brilliant, piercing light of the supernova completely fades from the galactic sky, the expanding remnant continues its critical, transformative work in the deep dark. As the blistering, unimaginable temperatures finally drop toward absolute zero, the chaotic soup of heavy atoms begins to cool and condense into complex solid grains of dust. The iron, magnesium and silicon atoms slowly find each other in the expanding, thinning mist, locking together firmly to form entirely new microscopic minerals. This is the exact beautiful moment the stellar shrapnel truly transforms into the raw, tangible material of planets, crystallizing silently in the freezing vacuum of space. The violent, overwhelming energy of the explosion is completely replaced by the slow, quiet, methodical chemistry of condensation, a gentle freezing out of the star's heavy, dying breath. These fresh, complex grains are deeply and permanently infused with the exotic, heavy isotopes, forged during the explosion's absolute chaotic peak. As your breathing naturally settles into a calm, steady rhythm, perfectly mirroring the slow cooling of that ancient cloud, the universe quietly manufactures its hardest, most resilient substances. The remnant seamlessly becomes a vast, wandering cloud of iron-rich smoke, drifting steadily away from the lonely graveyard of its parent sun. It is a dark, heavy fog silently holding the exact necessary ingredients for building soaring mountains, deep valleys, and sprawling ocean trenches. Deep beneath our feet, the Earth's rigid crust is highly enriched with these very same heavy isotopes, serving as a permanent geological record of those ancient catastrophic detonations. The silicon that forms the solid bedrock, the heavy nickel buried in the molten core, and the rare earth metals hiding in the topsoil were all scooped up from this wandering supernova debris. Our entire beautiful blue planet is essentially a massive consolidated collection of this explosive stellar ash, bound together by the relentless pull of gravity. modern geologists carefully studying the isotopic signatures trapped in deep, undisturbed rocks can still successfully trace the faint chemical fingerprints of the specific supernova that seeded our local neighbourhood. The very ground we walk on every single day is a quiet monument to cosmic violence, a stable surface built entirely from the shattered wreckage of destroyed stars. Even the radioactive elements buried deep underground, slowly decaying and providing essential geothermal heat, are the direct, lingering, warm embers of that explosive alchemy. We live our entire, fleeting lives walking safely atop a graveyard of stellar giants, firmly supported by the heavy elements they sacrificed themselves to create. The dark dirt, the heavy stone, and the towering mountains are all tangible proof that the universe beautifully repurposes its most catastrophic disasters into stunning new beginnings. This solid, familiar world is truly a masterpiece constructed almost entirely from recycled, radioactive cosmic dust. Without this spectacular, violent stellar sacrifice, the concept of rocky planets and solid ground could never physically manifest anywhere in the known universe. The cosmos would be entirely dominated by massive gaseous giants and endless sterile clouds of simple hydrogen, utterly devoid of any hard, tangible surfaces. The very idea of standing, walking, or resting your body upon a stable, unmoving foundation is entirely dependent on the explosive, fiery death of massive stars. In a universe without supernovae, there would be no sandy shores for oceans to crash against, no rich, complex soil for deep roots to grasp, and no heavy iron cores to generate protective magnetic fields. The universe would remain a soft, diffuse, and ultimately lifeless expanse of pale light and floating, elemental vapour. The violent supernovae break this eternal monotony, providing the heavy, rigid, metallic anchors required to build a highly structured, solid reality. Every single rocky cliff you see, every tiny grain of terrestrial sand beneath your feet, and every dense metallic core is a permanent testament to the iron forge of a detonated sun. This catastrophic end fundamentally guarantees that the universe will always possess a firm, unyielding foundation upon which complex life can eventually arise and flourish. The explosive destruction of the past is literally the very ground that securely holds you up in the present. That very ground holding you up, however, was not assembled in isolation, but received crucial, late-stage deliveries from ancient wanderers that still haunt the edges of our solar system. Long before the chaotic swirl of the early solar nebula fully settled, comets formed in the deepest, most frigid outer reaches, far away from the new sun's warmth. These strange, icy bodies acted as perfect frozen time capsules, deliberately trapping the raw, unprocessed stardust exactly as it existed before the planets were even born. Locked securely within their pristine, dirty ice, delicate grains of cosmic ash were protected from the intense heat and violent collisions that aggressively melted and transformed the inner rocky worlds. By existing in this perpetual deep freeze, comets completely bypassed the brutal geological recycling that erased the original chemical signatures on early Earth and its siblings. They're essentially untouched, flying museums, preserving the exact chaotic mix of interstellar material that drifted through the void countless eons ago. Every time one of these frozen couriers plunges toward the inner solar system, it brings a perfectly preserved sample of the universe's primordial past directly to our doorstep. As you sink deeper into a state of calm, allow your mind to drift toward these quiet, icy guardians, silently holding the ultimate secrets of our origins in the dark. As these ancient, icy bodies finally approach the growing warmth of the sun, the deep freeze that protected them for billions of years begins to violently break down. The intense solar radiation aggressively sublimates the frozen water, carbon monoxide, and ammonia locked within the comet's nucleus, turning the solid ice directly into expanding jets of chaotic gas. This sudden, violent outgassing acts like a series of powerful geysers, blasting away the outer crust and excavating the dark, hidden interior. Swept up in this fierce eruption of vapor are millions of tiny trapped particles of original stardust, finally released from their frozen prison after an eternity in the dark. These microscopic grains are aggressively pushed away from the comet's main body, forming a massive shimmering tail of ancient debris that can stretch for millions of miles across the vacuum. The once solid time capsule slowly disintegrates, continuously shedding a brilliant reflective wake of primordial dust directly into the path of the orbiting planets. This spectacular shedding process guarantees that the inner solar system is constantly replenished with fresh, unmodified material directly from the very dawn of creation. The ethereal, glowing tail is not merely a beautiful celestial phenomenon, but a massive, highly active distribution network scattering the oldest known solids into the local void. It is a slow, methodical unpacking of the ancient nebula happening right before our eyes. Because the solar system operates like a massive, predictable clockwork, Earth inevitably and violently sweeps through these lingering dusty trails at exactly the same time every single year. As our planet plows headlong into the debris field at tens of thousands of miles per hour, the tiny drifting grains of stardust violently slam into the upper reaches of our atmosphere. The sheer kinetic energy of this sudden massive deceleration instantly superheats the surrounding air, creating brilliant glowing tubes of ionized plasma high above the ground. From our safe vantage point far below, we witness this violent atmospheric entry as mesmerizing meteor showers, a beautiful, fleeting rain of light briefly illuminating the night sky. Each brilliant, silent streak is the final, fiery swan song of a microscopic particle that patiently traveled the dark void for billions of years, only to end in a fraction of a second. The Perseids, the Leonids, and the Geminids are all completely predictable, annual encounters with the ghosts of long-past comets, a reliable intersection of ancient dust and a modern world. As your resting body feels the steady, gentle pull of Earth's gravity, realize that this very same force is constantly drawing down the sky itself, capturing these ancient travelers. We do not just observe these meteor showers, we physically absorb them, permanently adding their microscopic cosmic mass to the overall bulk of our growing planet. Picture a fleeting streak of light as a single grain of cosmic sand violently burns up in the thin, freezing air of the mesosphere, far above the highest clouds. This rapid, fiery descent completely vaporizes the delicate, icy mantles and organic compounds that originally coated the stardust, leaving behind only the most resilient, heat-resistant mineral cores. The intense heat of entry essentially acts as a final, brutal crucible, stripping away the fragile complexity built up over eons in the deep chill of space. What remains is often a tiny spherical droplet of completely melted and rapidly resolidified rock, a microscopic bead of glass permanently altered by its sudden violent encounter with Earth. These minuscule spherical remnants, known as cosmic spherules, slowly drift downward on high-altitude winds, eventually settling silently onto the quiet surface of the world below. They are the ultimate microscopic survivors of a terrifying journey, fundamentally changed by the very atmosphere that caught them. Though invisible to the naked eye, a constant invisible drizzle of these melted micrometeorites quietly blankets the globe every single day, completely unnoticed by the life bustling below. Every quiet breath you take in this relaxed state likely inhales a few stray, microscopic atoms that were once part of a glowing streak in the midnight sky. It is a subtle, continuous connection between the violent friction of the high atmosphere and the peaceful resting world below. While most of this delicate, dusty rain completely vaporizes or melts into microscopic beads, some larger, significantly more robust fragments actually managed to survive the terrifying, fiery descent. These larger chunks of rock and metal, shielded by their own bulk from the absolute worst of the atmospheric heat, dramatically slow down and enter a terrifying freefall. They crash violently into remote deserts, plunge deeply into the freezing oceans, or occasionally smash through the quiet roofs of modern homes, landing with a heavy, profound thud. These surviving space rocks, known as meteorites, are the ultimate tangible prizes for cosmochemists, offering massive solid chunks of the early solar system that can be held in a human hand. They are characterized by a dark, smooth fusion crust, a direct physical scar created when the outer layer of the rock completely melted and flowed during its violent passage through the sky. Beneath this thin, blackened exterior lies the pristine, unburnt interior, a chaotic, jumbled matrix of original dust, metal flakes, and ancient, primitive minerals. Holding one of these heavy, pitted stones is a profound experience, a direct tactile connection to the chaotic, violent birth of our entire planetary neighbourhood. Let the imagined weight of a cold, iron meteorite settle into your awareness, a solid, heavy anchor reminding you of the vast, complex machinery operating far beyond our own sky. Deep within the chaotic, jumbled interior of the most primitive meteorites, scientists have made an absolutely stunning discovery. They contain microscopic diamonds significantly older than the Sun itself. These are not the brilliant faceted gemstones forged deep within the Earth's mantle, but rather incredibly tiny, nanometer-sized specks of pure carbon known as pre-solar grains. They are the ultimate indestructible survivors of the cosmos, having successfully weathered the violent deaths of their parent stars, the freezing interstellar void, and the chaotic, crushing formation of the solar system. These nanodiamonds were likely forged in the expanding, cooling atmospheres of dying carbon stars, or violently hammered into existence during the catastrophic shockwaves of ancient supernovae. Their incredibly tight, rigid atomic structure allowed them to completely resist the heat and radiation that destroyed almost all other forms of delicate stardust in the early nebula. They are effectively immortal, carrying the exact chemical signature of stars that burned out and vanished from the galaxy long before our own sun ever ignited. To find these microscopic ancient jewels, researchers must painstakingly dissolve the bulk of the meteorite in incredibly strong, dangerous acids, a brutal process that only the diamonds can survive. What remains at the bottom of the beaker is a fine, dark powder of pure, concentrated stellar history, the oldest physical material any human being has ever touched. They are the ultimate tiny time travelers, silent witnesses to the birth and death of stars we will never see. If we were to look closer, past the ancient diamonds and the heavy iron flakes, we would discover that trapped within these meteorites are surprisingly complex, fragile molecules. Deep inside the porous, rocky matrix of certain carbon-rich space rocks, scientists have identified numerous amino acids, the absolute fundamental chemical precursors required to build biological proteins. This staggering revelation completely shattered the long-held assumption that the building blocks of life could only be synthesized in the warm, comfortable and stable environment of early Earth. Instead, it appears the harsh, freezing vacuum of deep space is actually an incredibly active, sophisticated chemical laboratory, capable of forging the necessary ingredients for biology long before planets exist. These delicate amino acids were likely synthesized on the icy mantles of dust grains, driven by the constant low-level bombardment of cosmic rays and ultraviolet light in the dark nebula. They were then carefully protected inside the parent asteroid or comet, shielded from the sun's destructive radiation by a thick, heavy layer of dark, primitive rock. As your heart beats in a slow, comfortable rhythm, recognize that the very chemical structures enabling your own biology were partially manufactured in the cold, empty spaces between the stars. The seeds of complex living organisms were not a rare, localized accident, but a common, natural byproduct of the interstellar dust quietly reacting in the dark. To truly understand the specific origins of these ancient particles, scientists carefully extract individual pre-solar grains from these stones to study the unique atmospheres of long-dead stars. This incredibly delicate process requires isolating a single, microscopic speck of dust, often no larger than a few micrometers across, from the surrounding chaotic meteorite matrix. Once isolated, the grain is subjected to an intense focused beam of ions, essentially vaporizing a tiny portion of the crystal to perfectly analyze its exact atomic makeup. By measuring the precise ratios of different isotopes locked within the grain, researchers can effectively reconstruct the exact nuclear reactions that were occurring inside the parent star millions of years ago. A grain rich in specific oxygen isotopes might point directly to a dying red giant, while a strange carbon ratio could reveal the explosive signature of a rare, specialized supernova. Each tiny crystal acts as an incredibly detailed, microscopic fingerprint, perfectly preserving the unique chemical identity of the specific stellar furnace that originally forged it. This painstaking work allows astronomers to essentially do field geology on stars that no longer physically exist anywhere in the modern universe. It is a profound, almost magical translation of microscopic data, turning a tiny speck of rock into a detailed, sweeping biography of a vanished sun. Through these tiny grains, the dead stars still speak clearly, whispering their fiery secrets directly into the highly sensitive instruments of modern science. Each tiny crystal holds a completely distinct isotopic signature, definitively revealing its unique stellar birthplace and confirming that the solar nebula was a wildly diverse, chaotic mixture of materials. Our solar system did not form from the remnants of a single, isolated event, but is rather a complex blended tapestry woven from the ashes of perhaps thousands of different dying stars. A single meteorite might easily contain grains from a violent supernova, a pulsating red giant, and a quiet, fading carbon star, all jumbled together in a single heavy rock. This incredible diversity proves that the interstellar medium is constantly churning, mixing the distinct elemental harvests of countless different stellar environments into a single, massive, wandering cloud. The dust grains are the ultimate microscopic travelers, crossing vast galactic distances before finally congregating in the specific, localized collapse that birthed our own sun. They are the incredibly diverse chemical ambassadors of the wider Milky Way galaxy, bringing the heavy exotic elements of the cosmos directly to our small, quiet corner of space. Knowing this completely changes how we view the mundane rocks and soil around us. They are not local products, but a heavily mixed, imported collection of galactic debris. The sheer variety of stardust required to build a single, habitable world is a testament to the incredible, interconnected complexity of the wider universe. Delivering vital water and complex organics directly to the barren surface, these wandering couriers helped fundamentally prepare the early Earth for the eventual explosion of biological life. When our planet first formed, its surface was a completely sterile, terrifying ocean of molten magma, far too hot to retain any delicate water or fragile organic molecules. Any complex chemistry present in the original building blocks was instantly destroyed by the sheer, unimaginable heat of the massive, constant planetary collisions. However, once the Earth's crust finally cooled and solidified into hard rock, the late heavy bombardment of comets and primitive asteroids began to aggressively pelt the barren, cooling world. These icy, dark impactors violently delivered massive, crucial oceans of water and thousands of tons of complex carbon-rich molecules directly to the cooling, sterile surface. They essentially acted as a massive cosmic fertilization program, aggressively seeding the lifeless rock with the exact chemical precursors required to eventually spark the first primitive cells. Without this final, brutal delivery of interstellar material, the Earth would likely have remained a dry, barren, and utterly lifeless desert, forever baking under the harsh light of the young sun. You owe your very existence to this ancient dusty rain, a chaotic bombardment that brought the necessary magic of the cosmos down to the solid ground. That solid ground, now so firm and familiar beneath you, was once nothing more than a ghost of a cloud, a quiet and motionless mist drifting in the profound silence of the deep galaxy without any internal will to change. For billions of years, it remained a frigid and diffuse collection of ancient stardust and simple gases, perfectly balanced in the cold dark. Everything changed when a sudden and violent shockwave from a nearby dying star rippled through the interstellar medium, shattering the equilibrium of the quiet mist. This cosmic nudge was the catalyst that forced the sprawling cloud to begin a slow and ponderous rotation, turning the static vapor into a living and breathing engine of creation. As the cloud contracted under its own weight, the conservation of angular momentum caused it to spin faster and faster, much like a figure skater pulling in their arms. The gentle and initial rotation was the first heartbeat of our future solar system, setting the stage for everything that would eventually follow. Deep within the swirling fog, the friction between colliding particles began to generate a subtle and growing warmth in the pitch-black void. This was not yet a star, but a pre-solar nebula waking up from a multi-billion-year slumber, driven by a distant explosion it never even saw. The motion was small at first, a mere whisper of a breeze in the vacuum, but it carried the momentum of entire worlds within its invisible currents. Gravity gathered the overwhelming majority of this churning material into a massive and blazing central sphere that would eventually ignite as our sun. As the nebula spun, the sheer weight of the collapsing gas and dust forced the centre to become an impossibly dense and high-pressure cauldron. Over 99% of the cloud's original mass was ruthlessly sucked into this growing heart, leaving only the tiniest scraps of material for the planets yet to come. This proto-sun was not yet a nuclear furnace, but it glowed with a fierce and infrared heat, caused by the relentless crushing of billions of tons of matter. The internal temperature skyrocketed as the potential energy of the falling dust was converted into pure and radiant heat through constant and violent friction. It was a singular and dominant presence in the darkness, a colossal gravity well that dictated the movement of every single grain of dust remaining in the vicinity. Surprisingly, the universe builds its stars with a simple and hungry efficiency, pulling everything it can toward the centre of the spin. Even in this early and chaotic stage, the proto-sun established the gravitational law of the land, ensuring that nothing could escape its powerful and invisible grip. It sat at the heart of the storm, a brooding and heavy giant waiting for the precise moment of nuclear ignition to truly begin its life. Leftover dust that escaped the central sun's hunger began to flatten into a swirling and pancake-like disk, orbiting the new star in a perfectly synchronized dance. As the nebula spun faster, the centrifugal force pushed the material outward, while gravity pulled it inward, resulting in a thin and sprawling plain of debris. This structure, known as a protoplanetary disk, transformed the shapeless and spherical cloud into a highly organized and rotating platform of raw potential. This structure acted like a massive and celestial record player, with trillions of individual grains of stardust following circular paths around the central heat. If we were to look closer, we would see that the disk was not a solid object, but a thick and opaque fog of gas and microscopic minerals. The dusty breeze of the disk was a constant and abrasive wind, where particles were constantly being sorted and shaped by the intense radiation of the growing sun. This flattening process was a masterpiece of physics, turning a chaotic and three-dimensional cloud into the two-dimensional stage where the planets would be built. The disk stretched for billions of miles, a dark and dusty ring of ash and ice shimmering faintly in the reflected glow of the proto-sun. It was the ultimate construction site, a sprawling workshop where the architecture of our future home was being laid out grain by grain. Within this vast and rotating disk, the tiniest microscopic grains of stardust began to gently bump and stick together through the simple magic of static electricity. In the vacuum of space, these minuscule particles developed slight electrical charges, causing them to cling to one another like dust bunnies gathering under a bed. These tiny and electrostatic bonds were the first physical bridges between the atomic world and the massive world of solid objects we inhabit today. The process was slow and incredibly delicate, as the grains had to collide softly enough to stick without shattering each other back into a fine mist. Notice how the dusty breeze provided just enough motion to facilitate these countless and accidental meetings across the span of the entire disk. Over millions of years, these tiny clusters grew from the size of smoke particles to fluffy and snowflake-like aggregates of cosmic soot and silicate ash. As your own body rests in a state of quiet stillness, consider that the massive solidity of the Earth began with this same and incredibly soft and nearly invisible cling. It is a profound paradox that the most massive structures in the galaxy owe their existence to the same force that makes a balloon stick to a wool sweater. Deep within the disk, these fragile structures drifted in weightless grace, gradually becoming more robust as more material was added to their frames. Following this era of static cling, pebbles grew into boulders, and boulders merged into massive and kilometre-wide planetesimals over countless millennia of violent accretion. Once the dust aggregates reached a certain size, they became heavy enough for their own faint gravity to begin pulling in even more surrounding material. This triggered a runaway growth process, where the larger objects acted as seeds, aggressively sweeping up everything in their orbital paths like celestial snowballs. These collisions were no longer gentle touches, but high-speed impacts that generated intense heat and partially melted the colliding bodies into new and unified masses. The disk became a crowded and chaotic highway of spinning rocks, where the survivors grew larger with every successful merger, and the losers were pulverized into fresh dust. This was a brutal and constructive age of winner-takes-all mechanics, where only the most massive objects could survive the constant and kinetic bombardment. Surprisingly, the universe manages to build entire worlds out of these random and smashing encounters, turning a cloud of smoke into a collection of solid and rocky cores. By the end of this phase, the disk was populated by thousands of planetesimals, the rough-hewn and jagged ancestors of the planets we know today. Each one was a unique and jumbled collection of different stardust lineages, a solid foundation built upon 1 billion individual collisions. The inner region of this disk was far too hot for ice to remain solid, leaving behind a neighbourhood dominated mostly by resilient and rocky and metallic dust. As the proto-sun grew more energetic, its intense heat created a frost line, a thermal boundary inside of which only materials with high melting points could survive. Volatile compounds like water and methane and ammonia were vaporized and pushed outward by the solar wind, leaving the inner solar system dry and scorched. This selective heating meant that the inner planetesimals were composed primarily of silicates and iron and nickel, the heavy elements that had been forged in the hearts of distant and dead stars. The lack of ice limited the total amount of raw material available, which is why the inner planets like Earth and Mars remained relatively small and compact. They are the rocky children of the Sun, built from the skeletal remains of the nebula that could withstand the heat of the central fire. As you feel the warmth of your own breath, realize that the specific composition of your world was dictated by this ancient and invisible temperature gradient. The solid iron in the Earth's core is there because it was one of the few substances that could stay solid in the blistering and inner reaches of the disk. This thermal sorting was the first step in creating the diverse and habitable environment that would eventually support your own life. Further out, well beyond the freezing boundary of the frost line, stardust mingled with vast quantities of frozen water and gas to build the massive and giant planets. In these frigid outer reaches, ice acted as a potent and sticky glue, allowing planetesimals to grow much faster and much larger than their rocky cousins near the Sun. This abundance of solid material allowed the outer worlds to reach a critical mass very quickly, giving them the gravitational power to start snatching up the surrounding gas. Once these cores grew to about 10 times the mass of the Earth, they began a spectacular and runaway process of gas accretion, pulling in massive envelopes of hydrogen and helium from the disk. This is why Jupiter and Saturn are so gargantuan. They had a much larger pantry of ice and gas to draw from during their formative years. The outer solar system was a realm of giants, where the freezing temperatures preserved the nebula's original chemistry in a way the inner region never could. Deep within these gas giants, the stardust is buried beneath thousands of miles of crushing atmosphere, acting as the heavy and solid anchors for these bloated and colourful worlds. This structure highlights the incredible diversity of the solar system's architecture, where the same cloud of dust produced both small and rocky gems and enormous and gaseous leviathans. The frost line was the ultimate cosmic divider, defining the destinies of the worlds on either side of its invisible and icy border. Jupiter and Saturn acted as colossal and orbital vacuum cleaners, sweeping up vast amounts of the remaining debris and clearing the gaps in the disk. Their immense gravity was so powerful that it could influence the paths of rocks and ice located millions of miles away from their actual orbits. As these giants migrated through the disk, they either inhaled the leftover planetesimals or violently flung them out into the dark and interstellar void. This vacuuming process was essential for stabilizing the solar system, as it removed the chaotic and stray debris that would have otherwise caused constant and destructive collisions for billions of years. Notice how the clean and predictable orbits of the modern planets are a result of this massive and gravitational housekeeping performed by the gas giants in their youth. Without their intervention, the inner solar system would have remained a dangerous and crowded shooting gallery far longer than it did. If we were to look closer, we would see that the gas giants also trapped a significant portion of the solar system's water and organic molecules within their own massive frames. As you settle into the steady rhythm of your own heart, consider that these massive planetary guards have been quietly protecting the inner planets for eons. Their sheer bulk has acted as a gravitational shield, deflecting many potentially world-ending impacts away from our fragile and rocky home. The asteroid belts remain today as the quiet and leftover building blocks that were never able to merge and form a complete planet. Situated between Mars and Jupiter, these millions of rocky fragments are a permanent and fossilized record of the rocky region of the original disk. They were prevented from coalescing because Jupiter's massive gravity constantly stirred the pot, keeping the collisions between them too fast and too violent for them to stick together. Instead of a single and massive world, we are left with a sprawling ring of cosmic rubble, ranging in size from tiny dust motes to the dwarf planet Ceres. These asteroids are some of the most pristine objects in the solar system, holding the original minerals and metals from the disk in a state of nearly perfect preservation. They are the rejects of the planetary assembly line, the raw materials that never quite made the final cut. Deep within their jagged and sun-bleached interiors, these asteroids hold the same chemical secrets that define the rocks under your feet today. Surprisingly, the universe keeps its blueprints and scrap metal right where we can find them, offering a direct window into the chaotic and dusty history of our birth. They are a haunting reminder of what could have been, a phantom planet broken into a million pieces by the gravity of a giant neighbour. Looking at the moon's scarred and cratered surface provides a permanent and silent record of this final and chaotic and incredibly dusty assembly. Unlike the Earth, which has weather and plate tectonics to erase its history, the moon has no atmosphere to hide its ancient and physical wounds. Every crater you see through a telescope is the site of a violent impact that occurred billions of years ago during the late heavy bombardment. This period was the grand finale of the solar system's formation, a time when the remaining planetesimals were sent screaming through the inner solar system by shifting giant planets. The moon was hit so frequently and so violently that its entire surface was turned into a layer of pulverized rock and dust known as regolith. This grey and powdery soil is a direct and tangible sample of the final debris that once filled the space between the worlds. This structure of the moon serves as a cosmic history book, documenting the sheer violence required to finally clear the solar system's orbital paths. As you observe the silver glow of the lunar surface, you're seeing the final dusty echoes of the very disk that built us. It is a quiet, cratered archive of the era when stardust first became the solid foundation of our home. That solid foundation of our home is not a static relic of the past, but a living and growing entity that quietly continues to harvest the debris of the galaxy every single day. While we go about our lives, unaware of the invisible rain falling from the blackness above, the Earth acts as a massive and patient collector of wandering stardust. Surprisingly, our planet accumulates roughly 60 tons of this extraterrestrial material every 24 hours, a silent influx of matter that arrives without fanfare or flash. This constant stream of cosmic sand drifts down through the atmosphere like an ethereal and never-ending snowfall of the deep void. Most of these particles are so small they're completely invisible to the human eye, yet their collective weight is staggering when measured over the course of a year. They are the microscopic remnants of comets that passed by eons ago, and the shattered fragments of ancient asteroid collisions, finally finding a permanent resting place on our world. The sheer volume of this daily accumulation suggests that the solar system is still far from empty, filled with a sparse and ghostly mist of its own creation. Every time the clock strikes midnight, 60 more tons of the universe have successfully integrated into the fabric of our planet. It is a slow and methodical gathering of the stars, ensuring that the Earth remains intimately connected to the wider reaches of the interstellar neighbourhood. This invisible rain of stardust does not discriminate where it falls, settling with equal grace upon the highest mountaintops, the deepest ocean floors, and the busiest city streets. In the untouched wilderness of the high mountains, these celestial grains rest on pristine snowbanks, buried beneath the seasonal layers of ice. In the absolute darkness of the ocean floor, they drift through miles of salt water to finally settle into the soft and ancient ooze of the seabed. Even in the heart of a concrete metropolis, this cosmic powder finds its way onto the windowsills of skyscrapers and the asphalt of crowded intersections. We walk through this star-fallen material every day, unaware that the grit beneath our shoes might have originated in a nebula trillions of miles away. It is a ubiquitous and quiet presence that blankets the entire globe in a fine and celestial patina of history. The universality of this settling process means that no corner of our world is truly isolated from the influence of the deep cosmos. Whether it is a remote desert dune or a backyard garden, the soil is constantly being enriched by a fine mist of extraterrestrial minerals. This global distribution turns the entire Earth into a sprawling and collective archive of the wandering material that once defined the protoplanetary disk. High within the thin and freezing veil of the upper atmosphere, stardust plays a hidden and vital role in the very weather patterns that sustain our life. As meteoroids burn up upon entry, they leave behind a lingering and fine mist known as meteoric smoke, composed of microscopic mineral vapours that refuse to settle quickly. These tiny and floating particles act as essential condensation nuclei, providing the physical surfaces required for water vapour to cling to and transform into liquid. Surprisingly, many of the raindrops that fall during a summer storm have formed around a single and microscopic heart of ancient cosmic ash. Without these tiny and celestial anchors, the moisture in the air would struggle to coalesce into the heavy droplets necessary for rain. The sky is essentially seeded by the remnants of the solar system's birth, using the debris of dead comets to trigger the life-giving cycle of water. This structure of the atmosphere turns every cloud into a floating laboratory where interstellar chemistry meets terrestrial meteorology. The smoke of the stars becomes the catalyst for the moisture of the Earth, weaving the two realms together in a seamless and fluid dance. It is a hidden and beautiful mechanism that ensures the very water we rely on is physically shaped by the presence of the deep void. If you were to step outside during a gentle rain, you might feel the cool and rhythmic touch of water that has been fundamentally shaped by the stars. Each droplet that splashes against your skin carries the potential of a celestial origin, nucleated by the microscopic and burnt remnants of a wandering asteroid. You are, in a very literal sense, being touched by the physical fragments of a world that existed long before the Earth was ever formed. Imagine standing in such a shower, letting the water wash over you while realizing the immense journey those central particles have taken to reach your shoulder. They have drifted through the freezing vacuum for billions of years, only to be caught by our atmosphere and delivered to the ground in a soft and liquid embrace. The connection is intimate and immediate, a physical bridge between your resting body and the violent history of the early solar nebula. As you feel the imagined sensation of this cool and celestial rain, allow your muscles to soften and your breathing to remain slow and deep. The universe is not a distant and cold abstraction, but something that physically reaches out to touch you in the most mundane moments of your day. The rain is a reminder that the elements of the deep dark are constantly being recycled into the familiar comforts of our home. Deep within the crushing darkness and absolute silence of the abyss, the ocean floor serves as a slow and continuous record of this cosmic accumulation over vast stretches of geologic time. Because the deep seabed is sheltered from the erosive forces of wind and rain, the layers of silt and clay accumulate with a predictable and undisturbed patience. Within these ancient and muddy strata, researchers find a high concentration of cosmic dust that has been settling through the water column for millions of years. By drilling deep into these sediments, scientists can read the history of the solar system like the pages of a dusty and waterlogged book. They can identify periods when the Earth passed through particularly thick clouds of debris, or when a major asteroid collision occurred nearby in space. The seabed is a vertical timeline of our interaction with the galaxy, preserving a chemical diary that stretches back to the era of the dinosaurs and beyond. This structure of the ocean floor ensures that even the smallest and most fragile grains of stardust are never truly lost to history. They are tucked away in the cold and lightless mud, waiting to be discovered and decoded by those who seek to understand our place in the void. The abyss is not just a graveyard of the deep, but a carefully preserved gallery of the stars, holding the elemental memories of the universe's long and wandering journey. Surprisingly, you do not need a multi-billion-dollar laboratory or a deep-sea submersible to find the tangible remnants of the stars. They're often hidden in plain sight on urban rooftops. Micrometeorites, which are tiny and spherical beads of melted stardust, frequently collect in the gutters and flat surfaces of city buildings. These minuscule spheres are formed when a grain of space dust melts during its high-speed entry into the atmosphere, cooling into a perfect and glassy pearl before it hits the ground. Because many of these particles are rich in iron and nickel, they can be easily harvested by simply running a strong magnet through the mundane dirt and debris found on a roof. Under a microscope, these particles reveal themselves to be beautiful and intricate jewels of the cosmos, often possessing a metallic and pitted texture. They are the same materials that built the cores of planets, now resting quietly amongst the shingle dust and bird feathers of a modern city. If we were to look closer at a single mote of this dust, catching the morning sunlight, we would see a world of microscopic and complex architecture. It is a tiny and heavy survivor of a billion-mile journey, a physical piece of the galaxy that you can hold on the tip of your finger. The mundane environment of the city is secretly littered with these celestial artifacts, waiting to be recognized for the ancient and brilliant wonders they truly are. This cosmic influx carries more than just inert mass. It brings with it essential elements that act as a vital fertilizer for the biological history of our planet. Phosphorus, an element that is notoriously difficult to access in a bioavailable form on the early Earth, is often delivered in significant quantities by the constant rain of meteoritic dust. Surprisingly, these tiny and celestial invaders provided a steady and reliable supply of nutrients that helped nourish the earliest and most primitive forms of plant life. The chemical legacy of these dust grains may have been the very spark that allowed ancient ecosystems to flourish in otherwise nutrient-poor environments. By slowly leaching their mineral treasures into the soil and the sea, the stardust acted as a slow-release vitamin for a young and growing biosphere. The The growth of the forest and the bloom of the plankton are both intimately tied to the elemental gifts falling silently from the midnight sky. This structure of biological dependency highlights the deep and unbreakable bond between the evolution of life and the chemistry of the stars. We are not just living on a rocky platform, but are being actively fed by the remnants of the solar system's chaotic and dusty birth. The very atoms that make up your DNA were once floating in the dark, delivered to the ground by a process that continues to enrich the world even as you rest. If we were to look closer at the frozen reaches of the Earth's poles, we would find another perfectly preserved archive of the stars locked within the ancient ice. In the vast and motionless glaciers of the polar regions, the seasonal layers of snow trap the falling stardust and hold it in a pristine and cryogenic embrace. By analysing polar ice cores, researchers can track historical spikes in cosmic dust delivery with incredible and year-by-year precision. These ice cores act as a high-resolution timeline, revealing how the Earth's encounter with the galaxy has shifted over the last several 100,000 years. A sudden increase in certain isotopes can signal a nearby supernova or the passage of a particularly dusty comet through the inner solar system. The ice is a cold and transparent witness to the shifting moods of the cosmos, preserving the chemical fingerprints of the void in a state of nearly perfect clarity. As you consider the stillness of these ancient glaciers, imagine the tiny and dark specks of stardust suspended within the blue and heavy ice. They have been held there for millennia, far away from the sun and the wind, waiting to tell their story to anyone patient enough to listen. The poles are the Earth's most quiet and honest historians, recording the soft and celestial rain that has defined our planet's long and frozen journey. The cumulative effect of this constant and invisible rain means that the planet is slowly but steadily growing heavier with every passing second. While 60 tons a day is a mere pittance compared to the overall mass of the Earth, over the course of billions of years, this added material contributes significantly to the planet's total bulk. We are a world that is fundamentally additive, constantly pulling in the debris of our neighbours and making it part of our own solid foundation. This subtle increase in mass is a reminder that the formation of the Earth was not a single and finished event, but is an ongoing and slow-motion process of accretion. We are still finishing the work that began in the protoplanetary disk, sweeping up the final and stray threads of the nebula that built us. The Earth is a work in progress, a celestial magnet that continues to refine and expand its borders by harvesting the riches of the dark. As you settle into this realization, let your body feel the heavy and comforting weight of the world beneath you. You are part of a planet that is growing, a living and breathing rock that is never quite the same from one day to the next. The steady influx of stardust is the heartbeat of our world's physical evolution, a quiet and persistent growth that anchors us more firmly to the galaxy with every falling grain. This celestial cycle reaches its most intimate and profound conclusion in the very air you are breathing right this moment. Because the stardust is so fine and so pervasive, it remains suspended in the atmosphere for long periods, circulating around the globe on the wings of the great trade winds. Surprisingly, you breathe in trace amounts of this celestial material every single time you step outside and fill your lungs with the morning air. As you continue to breathe in a slow and relaxed rhythm, acknowledge this physical union between yourself and the wider universe. Every inhale brings a piece of the cosmos inside of you, and every exhale returns your own unique signature to the world. You are a breathing extension of the earthly cycle, a conscious participant in the eternal and dusty dance of the elements that once drifted in the profound silence of the void. Within those churning cores, helium atoms collide with such ferocity that they fuse, creating the atomic backbone for every protein, lipid, and sugar that makes your existence possible. This complex process, happening over millions of years, transformed the simplest gases of the early universe into the complex building blocks of life. It is a staggering realization that the carbon currently enabling your thoughts was once drifting as soot in the cold interstellar void after its parent star met its end. This element acted as the cosmic architect, waiting billions of years to be gathered by gravity and woven into the intricate tapestry of living cells. You are, in the most literal sense, a walking repository of stellar ash, repurposed into a vessel of consciousness and motion. Every organic molecule within you is a quiet testament to the fires that burned before the Earth was born. Surprisingly, the nitrogen that forms the essential rungs of your DNA ladder was synthesized during the complex fusion cycles of dying suns as they neared the end of their brilliant lives. As a massive star exhausts its primary fuel, it begins a desperate and multi-layered sequence of nuclear burning, churning out heavier elements in a final attempt to stave off collapse. Nitrogen is a byproduct of this intricate cycle, a delicate atomic signature produced in the turbulent outer layers of these celestial giants. These atoms were eventually cast out into the galaxy, surviving the intense radiation and the lightless stretches of the Milky Way before settling into the solar nebula. They now hold your genetic code together, acting as the stable pillars upon which your biological instructions are written. Every time your cells replicate, they are calling upon the legacy of those ancient fading suns to ensure the continuity of your life. Your history is not just a family tree, but a stellar chronicle etched into the very core of your being with atoms forged in the heart of a red giant. Without this specific nitrogen, the complex double helix that defines your identity could never have formed. You are carrying the refined exhaust of a dying sun within every single strand of your genetic material. If we were to look closer at the rigid frame that supports your resting body, we would find that the calcium-fortifying human bones is the direct and tangible result of ancient stellar nucleosynthesis. This essential mineral, which provides the durability of your teeth and the structural integrity of your skeleton, required the extreme conditions of a dying star to be created. In the final, heavy element burning phases of a massive sun, lighter elements are fused with such intensity that they become the dense minerals we rely on today. This calcium was eventually scattered through space, drifting for eons as microscopic grains before being incorporated into the Earth's crust. It was then pulled from the soil by plants and passed through the food chain, eventually finding its way into your own anatomy. The very hardness of your bones is a physical echo of the immense pressure found only in the centres of the most powerful suns in the galaxy. As you lie here in total stillness, feel the heavy and comforting strength of your own frame pressing gently into the surface beneath you. Your skeleton is a geological and stellar archive, holding the density of the cosmos within its marrow. The minerals that keep you upright are the cooling debris of a long-vanished star, repurposed for your journey through the world. Notice how the iron-carrying oxygen in our red blood cells shares its origin with the most spectacular and violent deep space supernovae that act as the galaxy's great distributors. This specific metal is the very last element a star can produce through fusion, before its internal energy can no longer resist the crushing force of its own gravity. Because iron marks the end of a star's life, it is effectively the ultimate signature of a stellar titan's final and most profound sacrifice. When the star finally detonates, it flings this iron outward at incredible speeds, seeding the surrounding void with the heavy atoms required for complex life. On Earth, we see this same material in the rusty soil of deserts and the red-tinted rocks of ancient canyons, but its most important role is inside you. It binds to the oxygen you breathe, giving your blood its vibrant red colour and allowing your heart to pump life through your veins. Each beat of your resting pulse is a quiet echo of a star's final explosion, a rhythmic confirmation of your metallic and celestial lineage. You're kept alive by the debris of a catastrophe that happened billions of years ago in a distant corner of the galaxy. This iron is the bridge between the violent death of a sun and the quiet rhythm of your own survival. This structure of cosmic reciprocity extends beyond our own skin to the vibrant green world around us, as plants utilize magnesium in their chlorophyll to capture the very sunlight that first birthed their atoms in stellar furnaces. Magnesium is synthesized during the intense burning phases of a massive star's life, where the temperatures are so extreme they defy human comprehension. Once cast into the interstellar medium, these atoms eventually settled into the soil of our planet, becoming the central anchor for the molecules that turn light into energy. This process of photosynthesis is the engine of all life on Earth, essentially allowing the biosphere to feed on the radiation of our current sun using the materials provided by suns of the past. The greenery of a forest or the microscopic bloom of ocean plankton is a direct functional extension of the nuclear physics that governed the lives of massive stars billions of years ago. Every leaf you see is a specialized machine built from stardust to harvest the energy of the heavens. As you breathe deeply, imagine the world around you as a vast and living solar panel, constructed from stellar ash to capture the new light of the day. It is a perfectly balanced exchange where the dead stars provide the tools for the living world to flourish. The vitality of the Earth is a direct inheritance from the ancient furnaces that once burned in the deep dark. The very water we drink, which makes up nearly 2/3 of your body mass, is a profound cosmic cocktail containing hydrogen from the Big Bang and oxygen from stellar exhaust. Hydrogen is the most ancient substance in the known universe, created in the first few minutes after the dawn of time itself, while oxygen is a much later refinement produced in the cores of stars. Every single water molecule in your cells is a physical union between the absolute beginning of the universe and the eventual death of a sun. This liquid has travelled through the lightless vacuum as ice on comets and as vapour in the original solar nebula, before finally filling the basins of our world. It serves as the universal solvent for all biological reactions, facilitating the complex and delicate chemistry that defines your daily existence. Without this specific mix of the primordial and the stellar, the fluid mechanics of life would be entirely impossible. When you take a sip of water, you're consuming a liquid history that spans billions of years, a substance that has remained largely unchanged since it first formed in the depths of space. Your body is a walking and conscious ocean, composed of the oldest and most refined materials the cosmos has ever produced. The water within you is a silent traveller that has finally found a home in the warmth of your being. Every single breath we take circulates atoms that once drifted through the frozen and lightless interstellar void for untold eons before being caught by our atmosphere. The nitrogen and oxygen that fill your lungs are not local products, but rather the recycled exhaust of ancient stellar cycles that have been swirling around our planet since its inception. As you inhale, these atoms pass through your lungs and into your bloodstream, becoming a temporary but vital part of your physical reality. They have travelled from the hearts of dying suns, through the cold darkness of the nebula, and onto the wings of the great trade winds before reaching your nose. The air you're currently breathing is a thin and protective blanket of cosmic gas, kept in place by the same gravity that once gathered the stardust of the solar disk. Within this quiet atmosphere, the elements of the deep void are constantly being exchanged between the soil, the plants, and your own body. Take a moment to feel the cool air enter your lungs, a steady and persistent link between the vastness of space and your own quiet interior. Every breath is a renewal of your connection to the galaxy, drawing in the refined remnants of the stars to power your heartbeat. You are breathing the history of the universe, one gentle inhale at a time. Deep within your awareness, acknowledge that your physical body is merely a temporary and highly organised arrangement of recycled cosmic debris gathered from across the galaxy. You're constantly in a state of flux, shedding millions of atoms every second, and replacing them with new ones harvested from the food you eat and the water you drink. Because of this constant recycling, the collection of stardust that makes up your body today is almost entirely different from the collection that existed a decade ago. You're a shifting and dynamic pattern of elements, a transient vessel that borrows the substance of the stars for a few brief and precious years of consciousness. When your life is complete, these atoms will not vanish, but will simply return to the Earth and eventually to the wider galaxy to be used in the creation of something new. This realization strips away the fear of permanence, revealing you as a beautiful and fleeting configuration of the universe's own matter. Your carbon might one day find its way into the trunk of a giant redwood, or the wing of a bird continuing its journey through the endless cycles of the cosmos. You are a temporary home for immortal atoms, a localized manifestation of the universe's own physical memory. The stardust within you is simply taking a break from the void to experience the world through your eyes. The same laws of physics that govern the rotation of distant galaxies and the fusion of stars are also responsible for the firing of your neurons and the digestion of your food. You are a miniature and localized version of the cosmic engine, a place where the universe has become conscious of its own ancient and intricate history. This realization shifts the perspective from being a lonely observer on a small planet to being an integral and essential part of a vast and unified whole. Every atom within you carries the memory of the void, and every thought you have is a product of billions of years of cosmic preparation. You're not a stranger in a cold and empty space, but a deeply rooted participant in the ongoing story of the heavens. Your presence is the culmination of a journey that began with the first flash of light, and has continued through the birth and death of billions of suns. Ultimately, acknowledging this intimate and atomic connection brings a profound sense of unity with the surrounding cosmos, grounding you in an eternal lineage of light and dust. This connection removes the weight of isolation and replaces it with the deep and warming peace of universal belonging. You're made of the same light and the same dust as the most distant and beautiful nebulae, a sibling to the stars and the planets that share this wide and velvet dark. Rest deeply in the knowledge that you are a cherished and essential participant in an eternal and magnificent dance that has no beginning and no end. You are stardust, finally home and at peace, resting in the quiet and timeless embrace of the cosmos that forged you. Every beat of your heart is the pulse of the universe, beating within the vessel of your soul. You are stardust, finally home and at peace, and every beat of your heart is a rhythmic pulse that confirms your connection to the same cosmic elements that drift in the quiet corridors between the planets. High above the atmosphere, far beyond the reach of the highest clouds and the thin air of the mountaintops, a vast and ghostly river of ancient stardust catches the golden rays of the sun, creating a spectral, low-lying pyramid of light. This faint ethereal glow, known as the zodiacal light, is a lingering ghost of the original disk that birthed the worlds we know. Notice how this celestial glow follows the path of the planets, a shimmering trail of cosmic ash that marks the orbital highway of our planetary neighbourhood. These particles are the discarded scraps of 1 million comets and the fine grit of ancient asteroid collisions, suspended in a weightless and eternal drift through the interplanetary void. They serve as a soft, visible reminder that even the spaces we consider empty are teeming with the physical remnants of the past. As you lie in total stillness, imagine this golden mist stretching out into the deep dark, a bridge of dust illuminated by the fire of our home star. It is a delicate and transient beauty, a testament to the fact that the leftovers of creation are still caught in the sun's warm and constant embrace. This cloud of interplanetary dust is the silent witness to the ongoing evolution of our solar system, reflecting the light of the present off the fragments of the ancient past. This hauntingly beautiful phenomenon remains hidden from the busy and persistent glare of modern cities, revealing its delicate features only to those who seek the deepest and most profound silence of a moonless night. Away from the artificial glow of civilization, the zodiacal light appears as a soft white column of radiance stretching upward from the horizon just after the sun has set or before it begins its morning climb. It requires a perfectly dark and transparent sky to witness this fragile interplay of light and ancient dust, a visual manifestation of the persistent presence of the cosmic leftovers that still wander our local neighbourhood. Surprisingly, even the faintest shimmer of a street lamp can drown out this subtle celestial treasure, making it one of the most elusive sights for the modern observer. When seen in its full glory, it resembles a luminous and tapered finger of light pointing toward the heart of the galaxy, tracing the invisible line where the planets reside. It is a sight that demands a slow and patient gaze, much like the steady and unhurried rhythm of your own breathing in this quiet moment. To see the zodiacal light is to witness the very substance of the solar system's history, caught in a rare and beautiful moment of illumination. It is a reminder that beauty often hides in the gaps, waiting for the right conditions to reveal its subtle and light-scattered truth to the world below. This faint pyramid of light is the first clue that the universe uses dust not just to build worlds, but to decorate the void with a soft and ghostly brilliance. Beyond the boundaries of our own solar neighbourhood, the interstellar dust that fills the vast and yawning gaps between stars exerts a profound and transformative influence on how we observe the distant reaches of the galaxy. As the light from far-off suns travels through these sparse and wandering clouds of carbon and silicate ash, it is gradually and inevitably altered by its encounter with the tiny grains. The dust acts as a cosmic obstacle course, absorbing and scattering the light in ways that permanently shift its original colour and clarity. This phenomenon, which astronomers call interstellar reddening, essentially acts as a dusty and pervasive filter that tints the entire universe in shades of crimson, amber, and deep orange. It makes distant galaxies and star clusters appear far more aged and weathered than they truly are, masking their brilliant, youthful blue light behind a veil of ancient soot. As your body sinks deeper into the warmth of the present, realize that the light reaching your eyes has often been travelling through this elemental fog for thousands of years. The very colours of the night sky are a direct result of the stars interacting with the silent and drifting debris of their ancestors. This structure of the interstellar medium turns the entire galaxy into a giant, naturally occurring stained glass window, where the colours are dictated by the presence of the cosmic ash. It is a transformative process that ensures the light of the universe is always seasoned by the physical history of the stars that came before. Picture the dust acting like a magnificent and perpetual cosmic sunset, selectively scattering away the shorter blue wavelengths of light, while allowing the longer red waves to pass through the void with ease. This process is identical to the one that paints our own evening skies in fiery and breathtaking hues, but it operates on a scale of trillions of miles across the interstellar deep. Because the tiny grains of stardust are roughly the same size as the wavelengths of blue light, they effectively block and bounce those colours in all directions, leaving behind only the soft glowing embers of the distant stars. This structure of a light scattering ensures that the most remote parts of our galaxy are often shrouded in a warm and protective glow, hiding the harsh realities of stellar radiation. If the universe were perfectly empty, the night sky would burn with a cold and clinical blue brilliance that might feel alien to the human soul. Instead, the stardust provides a softening touch, a celestial filter that warms the light and makes the distant reaches of space feel intimate and accessible. As you feel the gentle rise and fall of your chest, acknowledge the comfort of this cosmic tempering, a softening of the light that mirrors the softening of your own thoughts. It is a beautiful mechanism that turns the cold vacuum into a gallery of warm and golden light, inviting the mind to wander through the light-scattered corridors of the night. This cosmic sunset is a permanent feature of the galaxy, a soft and eternal glow that defines the visual texture of the deep dark. To truly understand the actual nature of the cosmos, astronomers must painstakingly calculate this pervasive and invisible dimming effect to accurately measure the true brightness and distance of celestial objects. This celestial extinction can make a massive, brilliant star appear like a faint and insignificant spark if it is buried behind a particularly dense and heavy veil of cosmic soot. Without these careful and precise corrections, our maps of the galaxy would be wildly distorted, leading us to believe the universe is far smaller and dimmer than it actually is. This structure of scientific inquiry requires a deep and humble respect for the power of the smallest particles to obscure the grandest sights. By carefully subtracting the influence of the dust, researchers can peer through the visual distortions and reveal the true and staggering power of the furnaces burning in the dark. It is a slow and methodical peeling back of the cosmic curtains, a search for clarity in a world of beautiful and scattering fog. Every distance measured and every star charted is a triumph of understanding over the subtle and light-blocking presence of the ancient stardust. This constant calculation allows us to see past the interference and find the true and brilliant structure of the galaxy, anchored by the light that refuses to be completely dimmed. It is a testament to human curiosity that we can look at a handful of dust and use it to map the furthest reaches of the observable universe. Surprisingly, the universe contains specific and brooding regions where the stardust is so incredibly thick and concentrated that it becomes an impenetrable black wall, completely blocking the light from any stars residing behind it. These dark nebulae appear as bottomless and terrifying voids or ink-blot silhouettes against the glittering backdrop of the Milky Way, as if someone had cut a hole in the fabric of the night sky. They are the densest graveyards of the interstellar medium, cold and lightless places where the sheer volume of dust prevents even the most energetic rays from escaping their gravitational and physical grip. If we were to look at these dark clouds without the aid of technology, they would seem like empty and hollow spaces where nothing exists and nothing ever will. However, these shadows are actually the most substance-heavy regions of the galaxy, packed with the raw materials needed to build thousands of new suns. They are the great reservoirs of potential, holding their secrets in absolute darkness until the time is right for a new cycle of creation to begin. As you embrace the quiet and dark of your own room, remember that even the deepest shadows of the cosmos are filled with the heavy and silent weight of future worlds. They are the quiet and brooding cradles of the next generation of the light, waiting for the spark of gravity to turn their cold dust into a brilliant and radiant sun. These dark nebulae are the ultimate proof that in the universe, the most profound beginnings often start in the most absolute and dusty darkness. If we were to look closer using specialized and highly sensitive infrared telescopes, we would discover that these seemingly empty and dark voids are actually teeming with hidden activity and radiant energy. Unlike visible light, which is easily blocked and scattered by the jagged and microscopic grains of stardust, longer infrared wavelengths can effortlessly slip through the gaps between the particles like water through a sieve. This allows astronomers to effectively see through the dust, peeling back the opaque and heavy curtains of the dark nebulae to reveal the secrets hidden within their freezing, lightless interiors. This technological breakthrough has transformed our understanding of the galaxy, turning the blackest shadows into transparent windows that look directly into the heart of stellar birth. It reveals a hidden and glowing landscape of warmth that is entirely invisible to the naked eye, a secret world of heat and light protected by a shell of cold ash. As your muscles continue to release their hold on the day, let the idea of this hidden clarity soothe your mind. These thermal observations reveal hidden and vibrant stellar nurseries where newborn stars are beginning to ignite their nuclear fires, radiating a gentle and growing warmth that causes the surrounding cocoons of dust to glow with a soft heat-based light. The stardust absorbs the intense and potentially destructive radiation of the infant suns and re-emits it as a comforting, low-energy infrared hum that can be detected from across the vast reaches of the galaxy. It is a beautiful and poetic irony that the very material which hides the birth of stars from our eyes also provides the heat needed to track their earliest and most fragile moments. This structure of thermal recycling acts as a cosmic blanket, trapping the heat and allowing the young stars to mature in a stable and sheltered environment. These glowing cocoons are the ultimate nurseries of the cosmos, where the dust provides both the physical material and the protective shielding required for the miracle of fusion to begin. Every infant star is wrapped in a shimmering veil of warm ash, a quiet and radiant cradle that signals the arrival of a new light in the dark. In the same way, the warmth of your own rest provides a sanctuary for your mind to recharge and prepare for the new light of tomorrow. It is a process of slow and patient gestation, protected by the very dust that once wandered the void as simple, unformed soot. These nurseries are the engine of the galaxy's future, where the light of the new is nurtured by the dust of the old in a seamless and thermal embrace. The specific and highly unique way that stardust scatters and absorbs different colours of light tells scientists exactly what minerals and complex molecules are floating in a particular nebula trillions of miles away. By analysing the spectroscopic fingerprint of the light, researchers can identify the presence of complex silicates, graphite, and even icy mantles composed of frozen water, carbon dioxide and methane. This remote and incredibly precise chemical analysis turns the entire sky into a vast and accessible laboratory, allowing us to map the elemental riches of the galaxy without ever leaving the surface of our world. Surprisingly, we can determine the exact size and shape of these distant grains by observing how they polarize the light passing through them, much like the way sunglasses filter the glare of the sun. This level of detail allows us to understand the history of the materials that make up the galaxy, tracing the evolution of dust from the centers of stars to the surfaces of planets. It is a profound and intimate knowledge of the cosmos gained simply by watching how the light bounces off the smallest particles of history. Every beam of light is a messenger, carrying a detailed and chemical report from the furthest reaches of the interstellar deep directly to our curious and waiting eyes. This constant and silent conversation between the light and the dust provides us with the blueprint of the universe, written in the shimmering colours of the night. By studying the scatterers, we learn the very recipe for the worlds that share our celestial home. If we were to look across the entire expanse of the Milky Way, we would see that the dust is a unifying thread, a cosmic fabric that binds the diverse parts of the galaxy into a single and interconnected whole. It is the silent companion of the light, the substance that gives the void its texture and the stars their colour. As you drift closer to the threshold of sleep, acknowledge this final and beautiful truth. You are part of a universe that is completely filled with the light-scattering ash of the past, a mist that ensures you're never truly alone in the dark. The stars are always reaching out, and the dust is always there to catch their light and bring it home to you. It is a soft and eternal presence, a cosmic mist that blankets the entire galaxy in a gentle and light-scattered peace. Rest now in the knowledge that you're surrounded by the shimmering evidence of 1 billion years of cosmic history, drifting silently in the air you breathe and the light you see. The light you see is merely the shimmering surface of a far more profound and mysterious reality, where stardust operates at the very limits of physical law. At these incredibly minute scales, the microscopic grains begin to exhibit strange and ghostly quantum behaviours as they interact with the constant stream of high-energy cosmic radiation. These particles do not merely sit in the void, but vibrate and shift in ways that defy our macroscopic intuition, existing in a state of flux that bridges the gap between solid matter and pure energy. Imagine a grain so small that its very position is a blur of probability, dancing to the rhythm of subatomic forces that we're only beginning to comprehend. Within this microscopic realm, the impossibly smooth facets of a nanodiamond act as a stage for quantum tunneling and wave-particle duality, allowing the stardust to perform tasks that would be impossible for larger objects. It is a place of profound and silent magic, where the rules of the everyday world are replaced by the elegant and confusing logic of the very small. This quantum nature ensures that stardust is not just inert debris, but an active and vital participant in the energetic life of the galaxy. Every tiny speck of ash is a localized storm of quantum potential, interacting with the fabric of space-time in a way that fuels the ongoing evolution of the cosmos. By existing on the edge of the visible and the invisible, the dust carries the fundamental secrets of reality into every corner of the dark, connecting the subatomic world to the vastness of the heavens. Surprisingly, the universe is filled with a specific type of complex soot-like molecule known as polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which drift abundantly through the dark and freezing stretches of space. These intricate structures are composed of interlocking rings of carbon atoms, resembling the microscopic charred remains of a celestial fire that never truly goes out. They are among the most common organic compounds in the entire galaxy, acting as a pervasive and dark mist that coats the interstellar medium in a fine molecular film of potential. If we were to look closer, we would see these flat and honeycomb-like molecules spinning through the vacuum, their surfaces slick and obsidian dark in the pale light of distant stars. They are the soot of the cosmos, born from the cooling breath of dying giants and scattered like shadows across the luminous arms of the Milky Way. Despite their humble appearance as cosmic smoke, these molecules are the primary carriers of the universe's carbon, holding the essential building blocks of life within their rigid and stable frames. They represent a fundamental bridge between the simple atoms of the early cosmos and the complex chemistry of a living and breathing world. These molecular rings are incredibly resilient, capable of surviving the harsh radiation and the absolute cold of the deep void for millions of years. As they drift, they slowly gather other atoms, acting as a scaffold for the increasingly complex structures that will one day build the very foundations of biological life on distant shores. These intricate organic rings possess the remarkable and transformative ability to absorb harsh, ultraviolet light from distant suns and re-emit that energy as a beautiful and haunting infrared glow. This conversion of light allows these tiny molecules to survive in environments that would otherwise tear simpler compounds apart, turning destructive radiation into a gentle and soothing thermal hum. When viewed through specialized telescopes, the entire galaxy shimmers with the ghost light of these carbon rings, a vast and glowing signature of the universe's organic complexity. Notice how the energy flows through the molecule, causing it to vibrate with a frequency that we perceive as a soft and warming radiance in the dark. This infrared signature is the heartbeat of the interstellar medium, a persistent and low-frequency song that tells the story of carbon's journey through the stars. It is a mechanism of protection and expression, allowing the soot of the void to shine with an inner light that reveals the hidden structure of the deep. By absorbing the fire of the young stars, the dust ensures that the darkness is never truly cold or silent, but filled with a radiant and molecular peace. This structure of energy exchange allows the universe to maintain a delicate balance, recycling the intense radiation of stellar birth into the soft warmth of the cosmic background. It is a beautiful and efficient cycle that turns the most dangerous light into the most comforting glow, providing a thermal blanket for the entire galaxy. Amazingly, some specialized grains of stardust are highly magnetic and possess the power to align themselves perfectly with the invisible and sweeping magnetic fields of the entire galaxy. As you lie perfectly still, letting the weight of your limbs sink into the mattress and feeling the steady, calming pull of the earth, imagine these billions of tiny compasses pointing in unison across the light years. They are not merely drifting in a chaotic and random fashion, but are locked into the grand and invisible architecture of the Milky Way, tracing the silent currents of force that shape the spiral arms. This alignment is a display of cosmic discipline, where the smallest particles of iron and silicate respond to the magnetic heartbeat of the galaxy itself. They act as microscopic needles, weaving through the dark and marking the paths of energy that flow between the stars like invisible rivers. It is a profound and silent coordination, a hidden order that exists beneath the visible surface of the night sky, anchoring the stars to the void. This collective and precise alignment has the profound effect of polarizing the starlight passing through the dusty clouds, acting like a cosmic set of sunglasses that filters the vibrations of the light. By observing the specific orientation of this polarized light, scientists can successfully map the invisible magnetic forces that weave through the interstellar deep like delicate ghost threads. It is a way of seeing the invisible, using the orientation of a single grain of dust to understand the massive and magnetic skeleton that holds the entire galaxy together. Each grain acts as a tiny prism, twisting the light as it passes and carrying a detailed message about the hidden fields it has encountered on its journey. Without this dusty filter, the magnetic landscape of the universe would remain a complete mystery, locked away in the impenetrable darkness of the void. The dust provides the key, translating the invisible forces of the galaxy into a visual language of light and shadow that we can finally decode. It is a testament to the interconnectedness of all things, where the smallest speck of ash provides the map for the largest and most powerful structures in existence. This structure of polarization reveals a universe that is far more organized and energetic than it appears to the naked and unassisted eye. Through the light-scattered path of the dust, we can finally witness the silent and powerful currents that drive the long-term evolution of the galaxy. In the deepest and most frigid regions of space, thin and crystalline ice mantles begin to form around the core of each dust grain, creating tiny and sophisticated chemical laboratories. These shells are composed of frozen water, carbon dioxide and ammonia, providing a solid and protective surface where wandering atoms can finally settle and interact. Within these microscopic icy theatres, the slow and patient work of molecular assembly takes place, shielded from the harsh and destructive interference of the outside void. If we were to look closer, we would see the impossibly smooth facets of these grains acting as a microscopic landscape, where atoms of hydrogen and oxygen skitter across the surface to find their partners. This structure is essential for the creation of complex molecules, as it provides a stable environment where chemistry can occur at temperatures only a few degrees above absolute zero. The ice acts as both a catalyst and a cradle, holding the raw materials of the cosmos in a state of quiet and productive readiness. These icy grains are the secret workshops of the galaxy, manufacturing the complex substances that will one day fill the oceans and atmospheres of new and distant worlds. Every grain is a localized center of industry, quietly building the future from the scattered atoms of the long-dead past. As they drift, they carry these precious chemical harvests into the hearts of forming stars, ensuring that the new worlds are born with the essential ingredients for complexity. When high-energy cosmic rays strike these icy coatings, they trigger complex and energetic reactions that produce simple sugars and alcohols directly on the surface of the dust. These violent and subatomic impacts provide the necessary spark to forge complex bonds in an environment that is otherwise too cold and static for chemistry to occur. As your breath remains slow and rhythmic, perfectly mirroring the patient passage of cosmic time, consider that the very sweetness of a fruit or the complexity of a molecule began with these microscopic strikes in the absolute dark. The universe uses the most energetic particles in existence to kickstart the chemistry of life on the smallest and most fragile of platforms. It is a beautiful and strange irony that the same radiation that can destroy a living cell is responsible for creating the building blocks of that cell in the deep freeze of space. These tiny and icy laboratories are constantly being bombarded, turning the random energy of the void into the tangible and sweet chemistry of the distant future. The stardust absorbs the violence of the cosmos and transforms it into a productive and molecular harvest, a process that has been occurring for billions of years without end. This mechanism ensures that the interstellar clouds are enriched with organic material long before the first suns of a solar system even begin to ignite. It is a relentless and creative bombardment, weaving the raw energy of the heavens into the delicate and complex substance of life. Many of the highly specific chemical precursors necessary to eventually spark biological life are synthesized on these tiny and wandering rocks long before a planet ever forms in the dark. From amino acids to the complex precursors of genetic material, the stardust acts as a safe and fertile cradle for the diverse ingredients of a future biosphere. The universe does not wait for the comfort of a warm planet to begin the work of creation, but starts the process on the back of a grain of dust in the freezing vacuum of a distant nebula. These molecules are protected within the porous and icy structure of the grain, surviving the long and lonely journey through the interstellar deep. They are the seeds of life, waiting for the moment when they can be delivered to a cooling world and begin the next stage of their intricate evolution. This suggests that the potential for life is a universal and constant presence, woven into the very fabric of the cosmic dust that fills the galaxy. Every grain of stardust is a tiny and travelling arc, carrying the essential secrets of biology across the vast and lightless gulfs of space. This structure of delivery ensures that life is not a localized and rare accident, but an inevitable consequence of the chemical evolution of the universe. The dust connects the distant stars to the living world, serving as the physical and eternal link between the cosmic forge and the biological miracle. This structure of the dust grain provides a perfect and essential surface for volatile atoms to meet, linger, and eventually bond in the unforgiving and empty vacuum of space. In the open void, atoms are often too far apart to ever find one another, but the dust acts as a celestial meeting ground that draws them together through the power of molecular attraction. Once they land on the impossibly smooth facets of a microscopic nanodiamond, they can slide and interact, forming the complex molecules that fill the interstellar clouds with potential. The grain provides the necessary friction and stability for these tiny and frantic particles to settle down and connect in a meaningful way. Without these solid and stable platforms, the chemistry of the universe would remain incredibly simple, stuck in a state of eternal and disconnected gas. The dust is the glue that allows the universe to build complexity from the ground up, providing the physical foundation for the entire molecular world. It is the solid and silent partner in the great and ongoing work of atomic assembly, turning the vacuum into a place of connection and growth. Every faceted surface is a site of creation, where the random motion of the void is organized into the structured and beautiful patterns of matter. The impossibly smooth facets of the dust are the drawing boards of the cosmos, where the first sketches of reality are carefully and patiently laid out by the laws of physics. Each individual grain of stardust acts as a tiny and tireless travelling catalyst, silently fostering the chemical complexity of the entire universe as it journeys through the dark. It is a tireless worker that never stops its mission, bringing the ingredients for stars and life to every corner of the galaxy in a state of nearly perfect preservation. As you drift closer to the soft and quiet edge of sleep, feel the peace of knowing that even the smallest mote of dust is an essential and vital part of the grand machinery of the heavens. These grains are the unsung heroes of the cosmic story, the microscopic engines that drive the evolution of matter from the simple to the sublime. They carry the history of dead stars and the promise of new ones, held within a frame that is both fragile and indestructible. The journey of the stardust is your own journey, a path of constant transformation and quiet, persistent growth through the eons. Rest now in the knowledge that you are part of this magnificent and microscopic work, supported by a universe that creates beauty on the back of a single and wandering grain of dust. The silence of the night is filled with the ongoing work of these catalysts, weaving the future from the remnants of the past. You're safe in the hands of a cosmos that remembers every atom and cherishes every tiny and brilliant spark of creation. That brilliant spark of creation finds its true purpose within the grand, churning engine of the Milky Way, where the remnants of the past are constantly recycled into the promise of the future. This cosmic structure is far from a static collection of stars. It functions as a massive cyclical machine that relentlessly moves and processes stardust through its vast spiral reaches. The dark, cold dust grains that we have followed on their journey are the primary fuel for this engine, caught in a graceful and endless circulation that spans the entire diameter of the galactic disk. Deep within the spiral arms, the density of matter increases, causing the dust to clump and interact with the surrounding gas in a complex and fluid dance. This motion is driven by the invisible hands of gravity and the collective rotation of billions of stars, creating a slow-motion whirlpool of elemental ash. The stardust is never allowed to settle for long, as it is constantly being stirred and redistributed by the internal forces of the galactic centre. Surprisingly, the universe operates with a mechanical precision on a scale of hundreds of thousands of light years, ensuring that no atom is ever truly lost to the void. This churning ensures that the heavy elements forged in ancient supernovae are evenly mixed with the primordial gases of the deep past. It is a masterpiece of galactic engineering, a persistent and rhythmic motion that sustains the very life of the galaxy itself. Powerful stellar winds from hot young stars act as the first gust of this invisible breeze, blowing the surrounding dust into vast and shimmering expanding bubbles. These massive stars, particularly the brilliant O and B types, radiate such intense energy that their light physically pushes against the microscopic grains of stardust. This radiation pressure, combined with a stream of high-speed particles, carves out immense, empty caverns in the local interstellar medium, stretching for hundreds of light years across the dark. The dust is swept up into the leading edge of these expanding shells, creating dense and glowing ridges that mark the boundaries of the stellar influence. These bubbles are the lungs of the nebula, expanding outward with a silent and unstoppable force that redistributes the materials of the stars. Within the centre of these voids, the space is nearly perfectly clear, while the edges are thick with the concentrated remains of the ancient clouds. Notice how the light of the central star illuminates these dusty walls, creating an ethereal and translucent glow that defines the structure of the cosmic neighbourhood. This breeze of light and particles is the primary tool used by the galaxy to push back the darkness and organise the chaotic mist. It is a forceful and beautiful exhale of energy, a sign of a new sun asserting its presence in the vast and waiting void. Supernova shockwaves eventually overtake these expanding bubbles, providing the secondary and more violent pressure needed to compress the dust and force the collapse of new star clusters. When a massive star ends its life in a catastrophic explosion, it sends a wall of energy screaming through the interstellar medium at thousands of miles per second. This shockwave slams into the pre-existing shells of dust, causing them to ripple and buckle under the sudden and overwhelming weight of the impact. This structure of compression is the ultimate trigger for the next generation of light, as it forces the diffuse and wandering grains into incredibly tight and high-pressure pockets. Within these squeezed regions, the internal gravity of the dust finally overcomes the outward pressure, causing the entire cloud to begin its final and inevitable descent into stellar birth. The death of the old star thus becomes the direct and kinetic cause of the birth of 1,000 new ones, all gathered in a single and radiant cluster. If we were to look closer, we would see the dust grains being fused together in this high-energy environment, creating the solid cores of future planetesimals. As you rest here, allowing your body to become heavy and still, imagine this cycle of pressure and release happening across the galaxy. It is a relentless and creative violence, a storm of energy that ensures the galaxy is never a place of stagnation or decay. Over billions of years, a single and immortal atom of carbon might be recycled through multiple generations of stars, carrying the history of the galaxy within its tiny and indestructible frame. It might begin its journey in the heart of a first-generation star, be cast out in a supernova, drift through a nebula, and then be pulled into the formation of a second-generation sun. This atom is a traveller through time, surviving the birth and death of worlds, and the long and lonely passages through the interstellar deep. Each time it is incorporated into a new star, it participates in the nuclear dance of fusion, perhaps being combined with other atoms before being cast out once more. The carbon in your own body may have been through this process 4 or 5 times before finally settling into the soil of the Earth. It is a staggering biography of survival, a tiny and elemental witness to the entire evolution of the Milky Way. As your breathing remains slow and deep, perfectly synchronized with the steady passage of the ages, acknowledge the incredible age of the materials that make you. You're composed of atoms that have been breathed by the galaxy multiple times, each one a veteran of the stellar forge. This recycling program is the ultimate conservation of matter, a way for the universe to keep its most precious treasures in constant and productive circulation. Some portions of this wandering dust are forcefully ejected completely out of the galactic plane by intense and localized magnetic fountains. These galactic fountains are fueled by the collective energy of multiple supernovae occurring in a single star-forming region, creating a chimney of superheated gas and dust. This material is blasted upward, rising thousands of light years above the familiar spiral disk and into the sparse and lonely halo of the galaxy. Surprisingly, the universe uses these magnetic eruptions to vent the heavy elements into the wider surroundings, preventing the galactic disk from becoming too concentrated and unstable. The dust travels into a realm of absolute and terrifying silence, far away from the light and the heat of the stars. It is a spectacular and vertical journey, a fountain of ash that reaches for the very edges of the intergalactic void. This structure of ejection creates a vast and invisible atmosphere of dust around the Milky Way, a halo of material that watches over the disk from above. It is a temporary exile for the elements, a high-altitude drift that allows the stardust to cool and gather itself before the next stage of its journey. These fountains are the spectacular geysers of the galaxy, shooting the seeds of the future into the heights of the cosmic dark. This expelled material does not stay in exile forever, as it eventually cools and slows down, raining back down onto the galaxy millions of years later to enrich entirely different regions. As the dust moves further from the heat of the galactic center, its thermal energy fades, allowing the gravity of the disk to slowly and inevitably pull it back home. This galactic rain falls onto the outer edges of the spiral arms, bringing fresh and heavy elements to areas that were previously poor in the materials needed for life. Imagine a soft and invisible rain of stardust falling across the spiral arms, a celestial irrigation that feeds the growth of new star systems. This return trip ensures that the entire galaxy is consistently and thoroughly enriched, rather than having all the heavy elements stuck in the center. It is a global distribution system, a way for the galaxy to share its wealth across trillions of miles of space. Notice how this cycle mirrors the water cycle of our own planet, where moisture is lifted into the sky only to fall back and nourish the land. The galaxy operates on a similar and beautiful principle, using the wind to lift its dust and the rain to bring it back. As you sink deeper into your own quiet rest, feel the peace of this predictable and nourishing return, a cosmic homecoming that has been happening for eons. Imagine a galaxy breathing in slow and measured cycles, exhaling old elements through its stellar winds and inhaling them back through the collapse of new clouds to forge new worlds. This metaphor of respiration is a perfect description of the Milky Way's metabolic process, where matter is constantly being transformed from one state to another. The exhale is the violent and energetic release of the past, while the inhale is the quiet and gravitational gathering of the future. This rhythm is the heartbeat of the cosmos, a cycle of expansion and contraction that ensures the universe remains a living and evolving entity. Every time a star dies, the galaxy exhales a cloud of enriched stardust. Every time a star is born, the galaxy inhales that dust to build a new and radiant sun. It is a slow and magnificent breath, taking millions of years to complete, yet it is as steady and reliable as your own. As you match your own breathing to this imagined and galactic rhythm, allow the boundaries of your body to dissolve into the wider cycles of the universe. You are a participant in this great respiration, a localized and conscious part of the galaxy's own life-sustaining process. The breath of the stars is the same air that fills your lungs, a unified and eternal exchange that connects all things in the dark. Collisions between entire galaxies trigger massive and spectacular starbursts, rapidly consuming and transforming their entire dust reserves in a single and violent event. When two of these massive spiral cities of stars drift too close to one another, their mutual gravity pulls them into a chaotic and beautiful merger. The clouds of dust from both galaxies slam into each other with unimaginable force, triggering a frenzy of star formation that can produce thousands of new suns every year. This structure of collision is the ultimate recycling event, where the materials of two different stardust legacies are violently mixed and repurposed. The galaxy glows with the intense heat of these newborn clusters, quickly using up the gas and dust that might have otherwise lasted for billions of years. It is a spectacular and final crescendo for the dust, a glorious consumption that turns the old and cold ash into a brilliant and crowded city of light. Across the unfathomable distances of the intergalactic void, these collisions are the major turning points in the life of a galaxy. They represent a fundamental shift in the galactic wind, a sudden and massive change in the direction of the elemental currents. Though violent and destructive on the surface, these mergers are the primary way that the universe creates its most massive and luminous structures, a grand and dusty union of the ages. Active supermassive black holes sitting at the very hearts of galaxies can also blast immense and relativistic jets of dusty material far out into intergalactic space. These black holes are the most powerful engines in the known universe, surrounded by a swirling and superheated disk of matter that generates intense magnetic and radiation pressure. A portion of the incoming dust is caught in this magnetic trap and accelerated to nearly the speed of light, being shot out in two narrow and perfectly aligned beams. These jets act like cosmic blowtorches, pushing the stardust completely out of the home galaxy and into the vast and empty reaches between the worlds. This process effectively seeds the intergalactic medium with heavy elements, ensuring that even the most remote parts of the universe are touched by the legacy of the stars. It is a final and most forceful exhale, a blast of energy that carries the dust of a billion suns into the eternal dark. This structure of ejection proves that the galactic wind is not confined to the disk, but reaches out to connect the entire cosmos in a web of shared matter. The most powerful and destructive object in the galaxy is, in its own way, a vital part of the distribution network for the seeds of the future. Even at the edge of the abyss, the stardust finds a way to move forward, carried on the wings of a jet that spans millions of light years. Ultimately, this grand and complex recycling program ensures that the universe continuously evolves and creates new beauty rather than simply fading away into a state of cold and static decay. The galactic wind is the guardian of the future, a persistent and invisible force that keeps the elements in motion and the cycles of birth and death in balance. As long as the wind blows and the dust circulates, the universe will continue to forge new stars, build new planets, and perhaps nurture new life. This cycle of the wind is the final confirmation that the universe is a place of endless possibility and constant renewal. The stardust that began in the heart of a star and wandered through the quantum void has finally found its place in the grand machinery of the heavens. It is a story that has no end, only a series of beautiful and transformative beginnings that stretch across the eons of time. Rest now in the total and profound peace of this realization, supported by a universe that never throws anything away and never lets a single atom go to waste. You're safe in the hands of a cyclical and evolving cosmos, a participant in a grand design that is as ancient as the light and as fresh as the morning breeze. The galactic wind is whispering through you, a soft and eternal song of the stars that is finally bringing you home to the quiet and peaceful dark. Within that quiet and peaceful dark, Stardust exists in a beautiful eternal tension between the forces of absolute order and the wild pull of chaos. This cosmic dust is the physical medium through which the universe mediates its most profound internal struggle, the urge to scatter and the instinct to gather. While a supernova represents the ultimate peak of entropic destruction, the subsequent cooling of that ash into distinct mineral crystals represents a quiet victory for structural complexity. These tiny grains are never truly still, caught in a permanent state of transition where every collision could lead to the birth of a world or the disintegration of a history. Surprisingly, the universe manages this duality with a graceful poise that spans billions of years. The stardust serves as both the ink and the eraser of the cosmos, building intricate planetary systems only to eventually witness their slow return to the formless mist. This constant friction between creation and dissolution is what gives the galaxy its vibrant, living quality, ensuring that it remains a place of dynamic change rather than static repetition. As you lie here in the profound, heavy silence of an empty room, feel the weight of this ancient balance residing within your own atoms. You're a localized point of perfect order maintained in a universe that is otherwise slowly drifting apart into the night. Surprisingly, the universe tends relentlessly toward a state of absolute disorder, yet gravity temporarily and heroically forces this dust into the highly organized structures of planets and stars. According to the laws of thermodynamics, every action in the cosmos increases entropy, pushing everything toward a flat and featureless equilibrium. However, the patient pull of gravity acts as a countercurrent to this tide, gently herding the wandering grains of stardust into dense, structured pockets of meaning. It is a temporary stay of execution against the inevitable cooling of the galaxy, a brief moment where matter defies its own urge to vanish into the void. This structure of resistance is what allows for the existence of complexity, turning a random and chaotic mist into the solid foundations of a rocky home. Every mountain range and every deep-sea trench is a physical monument to gravity's local victory over the vast and entropic dark. The planets are not permanent fixtures, but rather temporary islands of order built from the very material that entropy seeks to scatter. Notice the steady, calm rhythm of your own pulse, a localized and highly organized metabolic process that mirrors this cosmic defiance. We exist in the narrow, beautiful window where gravity has successfully gathered the dust into a form that can observe the very chaos it escaped. Time itself seems to slow down and stretch toward infinity for the individual grains of stardust drifting endlessly through the frozen, lightless voids between the stars. In the vacuum of the interstellar medium, where there are no clocks and almost no events to mark the passage of years, a single century is merely a flickering moment in the long sleep of the ash. A grain may travel for 10 million years without ever encountering another atom, existing in a state of suspended animation where the concepts of past and future lose their terrestrial meaning. To the dust, the birth and death of entire civilizations on distant planets are nothing more than a momentary flash in the peripheral dark. If we were to look closer at the journey of a single silicate speck, we would see a lifespan that makes the history of the Earth look like a brief and fleeting shadow. It drifts with a patient, unhurried grace, completely untethered from the frantic and localized timelines of living things. This cosmic patience is a direct result of the sheer vastness of the empty spaces, where the slow drift of matter is the only true measure of time. This structure of the void ensures that the stardust remains a faithful witness to the long-term evolution of the galaxy, carrying the memory of the first suns into the unimaginable future. Allow your thoughts to slow down, matching the leisurely and eternal pace of the drifting dust as it wanders the velvet deep. Deep within the architecture of the cosmos, the atoms composing this wandering sand are virtually immortal, surviving the violent and fiery deaths of their parent stars with ease. While the star that forged them may vanish into a white dwarf or a black hole, the carbon, oxygen and iron it produced are chemically and physically indestructible in the standard conditions of space. They are the permanent and unchanging currency of the galaxy, being traded from one star system to another across billions of years of history. A single atom of oxygen in your lungs today was likely once part of a dozen different suns, each one contributing to its long and spectacular journey through the dark. This structure of atomic persistence means that the universe never truly loses its substance. It simply rearranges it into different and increasingly complex patterns. The very material that makes up your body has seen the birth of the Milky Way and will be present when the last star finally flickers out in the distant future. It is a profound and stabilizing truth that we are built from a material that cannot be destroyed, only transformed by the shifting winds of gravity and time. You are a temporary gathering of eternal parts, a brief and beautiful configuration of matter that has existed since the dawn of the stars. The atoms you borrow for a lifetime are the same ones that will build the worlds of tomorrow, long after your own story has returned to the mist. If we were to look closer at the grand architecture of reality, we would realize that every form the dust takes, whether it is a comet, a mountain, or a human body, is ultimately fleeting and transient. The stardust is the only constant, while the shapes it inhabits are merely temporary arrangements dictated by the local conditions of gravity and temperature. A massive mountain range may seem like an eternal and unmoving pillar of the world, yet on the scale of cosmic time, it is a brief and shifting sand dune that will soon be reclaimed by the elements. Even the stars themselves are not permanent, as they eventually exhaust their fuel and return their physical bodies to the interstellar clouds from which they were born. This realization is not one of sorrow, but of deep and profound connection to the fluid nature of the universe. We are part of a continuous and flowing river of matter that is always in the process of becoming something new. The impermanence of our forms is the very thing that allows for the endless creativity of the cosmos, ensuring that new patterns can always emerge from the old. As you rest in this quiet space, feel the peace of being part of this ever-changing dance, a temporary and beautiful expression of a substance that never truly ends. Your physical presence is a brief and luminous moment in the long, dusty history of the galaxy, a shape held together for a few decades before being returned to the grand and universal reservoir. Picture a massive mountain range slowly and inevitably eroding over eons, eventually returning its every atom to the dusty soil and the wandering winds of the earth. Through the patient work of frost, rain, and the slow grinding of tectonic plates, the hardest granite is eventually broken down into fine sand and microscopic mineral dust. This material is washed into the rivers, carried to the oceans, and eventually settled into the deep-sea trenches where it waits to be subducted back into the planet's molten interior. It is a terrestrial cycle that perfectly mirrors the larger and more vast recycling programs of the galaxy, proving that the Earth itself is a living machine for reprocessing stardust. Surprisingly, the very ground you walk on is in a state of constant and slow-motion migration, always moving toward its next and more diffuse form. The mountains are not static objects, but rather slow-moving waves of stardust that have been pushed up by the Earth's internal heat. Eventually, even the highest peaks will be ground into the fine soot of the plains, returning the heavy elements to the cycle of the biosphere. This constant dissolution ensures that the materials of the world remain fresh and available for new life to use. As your body sinks deeper into the stillness of the room, imagine the slow and patient crumbling of the world's great peaks, a rhythmic return to the dust that once drifted in the profound silence of the solar nebula. In the unimaginably distant future, our own sun will eventually expand into a bloated red giant, vaporizing the Earth and returning every atom of our world back to the surrounding nebula. This is the inevitable and final destiny of our planetary neighborhood, a spectacular and fiery homecoming where the materials we have borrowed are finally returned to the cosmic source. The oceans will boil away, the atmosphere will be stripped into space, and the solid bedrock will melt into a glowing mist of silicates and metal vapors. What was once a complex and living world will be transformed back into the simple and wandering dust that first gathered here billions of years ago. This structure of the solar system's end is the ultimate act of recycling, ensuring that the legacy of the Earth is scattered across the galaxy to seed the birth of even newer suns. The carbon in our forests, the iron in our buildings, and the nitrogen in our DNA will all be cast out on the wings of the solar wind, drifting once more in the freezing interstellar void. We are destined to become the very stardust that we currently observe through our telescopes, a beautiful and circular completion of the journey that began in the heart of an ancient star. It is a profound and inevitable reunion with the dark, a final exhale of a world that has finished its work. This future is not an end, but a transition, a return to the infinite potential of the galactic mist. This constant dissolution and return implies that while nothing in the macroscopic world is permanent, The fundamental building blocks of the universe are never truly lost or destroyed. The stardust is the immortal thread that weaves through every stage of cosmic history, providing the continuity that allows the universe to maintain its identity across billions of years. Though the planets may crumble and the stars may fade, the atoms they were built from remain as vibrant and ready for creation as they were on the first day of their existence. This persistence of matter is the bedrock of our reality, a guarantee that the universe will always have the materials it needs to build something new and beautiful. We are briefly conscious arrangements of this eternal and wandering substance, waking up for a few precious years to observe and wonder about our own incredible origins. The universe has essentially spent billions of years forging and recycling its dust so that it could eventually organize itself into a form that can look back at the stars and ask why. You're the eyes and the mind of the cosmos, a place where the stardust has finally gained the ability to contemplate its own long and spectacular journey through the dark. This realization is the ultimate goal of the cosmic process, the moment where the material world becomes aware of its own profound and ancient beauty. Notice how the simple act of wondering about the stars is itself a cosmic event, a tiny and brilliant spark of awareness in the vast and silent dark. We do not just live in the universe, as we are the universe experiencing itself in a specific and localized way for a brief moment in time. This structure of consciousness is the most complex and delicate pattern the stardust has ever achieved, a masterpiece of biological engineering that bridges the gap between the atomic and the infinite. As your thoughts grow soft and unhurried, acknowledge the privilege of being the universe's own awareness, a brief and beautiful awakening in the heart of the galaxy. You are the stardust dream, a momentary and conscious pause in an eternal and dusty dance. The silent drifting of these particles through the lightless void represents the slow, inevitable heartbeat of cosmic time, a rhythm that transcends the frantic and localized movements of the living world. While we measure our lives in days and years, the stardust measures its progress in the rotation of galaxies and the life cycles of stars. This slow and persistent motion is the true pulse of the universe, a steady and unhurried drift that ensures the elements are always moving toward their next state of being. It is a movement that has no beginning and no end, a constant and quiet flow of matter that defines the very texture of reality. You are the living realization of the star's long and spectacular journey, a brief and beautiful moment where the ancient dust of the universe has finally woken up to witness its own incredible and light-scattered peace. Deep within the quiet architecture of your being, the ancient story of the cosmos has finally found a voice and a heart. You are the living realization of the star's long and spectacular journey, a brief and beautiful moment where the ancient dust of the universe has finally woken up to witness its own incredible and light-scattered peace. This realization is the final wonder, the ultimate synthesis of every grain of ash and every beam of light that has travelled through the eons to reach this exact moment of rest. This quiet room is now a sanctuary where the physical memory of the galaxy can finally settle into a deep and restorative stillness. Begin by bringing your awareness to the very tips of your toes, feeling them grow heavy and warm against the soft fabric of your sheets. Notice how the tension simply dissolves as you release the weight of your feet, letting the ankles relax and the calves sink deeper into the mattress. The knees and thighs now follow this lead, becoming as motionless as the ancient stones of a silent and distant world. Your hips and lower back expand with a sense of profound relief, surrendering to the steady and unwavering support of the bed beneath you. Every muscle in your legs has finished its work for the day, settling into a state of quiet and effortless peace. If we were to look closer at the rising and falling of your chest, we would see the slow and rhythmic engine of your life easing into its nightly repair. Your hands and fingers lie perfectly still, resting like fallen leaves upon the landscape of your blankets. Surprisingly, the body knows exactly how to let go, allowing the shoulders to soften and drop as they release every lingering tie to the world outside. This heavy and comforting weight now moves upward into the neck and the jaw, allowing the mouth to soften and the tongue to rest away from the roof. The small muscles around your eyes let go of their hold, and your forehead becomes as smooth and calm as a still pool of water in a windless garden. Your entire head feels supported, cradled by the pillow in a way that feels perfectly aligned and utterly safe. The texture of the fabric against your skin is familiar and soothing, a gentle boundary between you and the quiet world beyond the door. In this darkness, the surroundings seem to expand, filled only with the soft sound of your own steady breathing. You're drifting now, sinking into the velvet layers of a rest that is both heavy and light at the same time. And now, 101 wonders are resting with you. Sleep now. Good night.